The call to order the City Council of East Lansing discussion only meeting Wednesday, April 2025. Could we have the roll?
Councilmember Altman,
Here.
Councilmember Meadows, Councilmember Wa- Mayor Pro Tem Singh.
Here. Can we have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Approval. Is all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Agenda is approved unanimously. Communication from the audience. Do we have anybody in the audience that wants to communicate with us? No. Anybody in the queue? No. Right. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to interview potential attorney services clients. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. I'm going to do this a little differently. Last time you might have been here, I remember. So each client has put together his or her own questions. Let's be going down the row. Each person will ask their questions at the same time. But Dave, you give us a 5 or 10 introduction if you want to, or statement or whatever. Give us some idea of what you want to tell us, and then we'll start.
So, my name is Gar Dashital. I am with law firm Keller Thoma. Keller Thoma has been working with the city for years. Before I joined back in 2008, I have been labor and employment work with the city at least since 2014. Tom can help, but Tom has also been doing work for the, or at least that period of time, if not.
Introduce Tom for the.
Tom Fleury to my left.
Thank you.
Also a partner at the firm. The firm is a smaller firm. It's myself and I have a partner, Laurie Reed, who does workers' comp for the city as well. Tom and Laurie run our workers' comp practice. Tom also does city answers disability law related questions. So things like ADA, work comp, FMLA, where those things overlap. Is kind of the go-to for those things, which is helpful when is also handling city's workers' comp matters. As you know, I do the traditional labor, the collective bargaining, grievance administration, that nature, and we have two other attorneys in our, Greg Schultz and Beth Young, who also do traditional. Their backup available. The firm has been around.
I haven't been, but
Close.
And we've been a boutique labor and employment law firm for, as I have been practicing for longer. So this is what we do. We do labor and employment work, and we primarily, at least over the last 10 years, on public sector clients. So school districts, cities, villages, counties, things of that nature. So we are particularly versed in the challenges that public employers face, in addition to the traditional sort of HR employment issues that any employer faces. There are that pose different challenges for public. Very familiar. I've been practicing since 2002.
long time. And since 1974, I was admitted to the bar. I was with Keller Thoma since 1979. And I then worked for the city of East Lansing pretty much for that entire time. I worked with everybody, and I did the labor and employment prior to Garvey. I have stepped back in that role somewhat, letting her take over. I'm her backup, though, still. And I like to focus on, like she said, the disability law, that area, because there's so much overlapping. I feel not many attorneys can do that. I know it. I've done both sides for years. I know how to handle it. So I've enjoyed working with the city of East Lansing, your city managers, your HR directors. I know them. I have institutional history. I thoroughly enjoy it.
Thank you. Questions, Dr. Altman?
Just one question mainly. So sometimes if you negotiate a contract, for example, end up dictating changes to our, for example, up with general counsel. So what's your approach or process for coordinating?
Well, it's actually something that's happening right now, so I can tell you how we're handling it right now. So I've been in touch with the city attorney's office. We have had a couple of joint calls, and then in those joint calls, we divided the work. So we're not trying very hard not to duplicate efforts. Those aspects of the coordination that require a labor I'm working on that aspect of it in a document, and then I sent it to the city attorney. They added the implication to the ordinance piece, and so we've sort of collaborated on the letter or the document that we're working on, but without sort of duplicating work. I'm not really touching on what the city attorney's office expertise is on, and they're not on what my expertise is on. Now, when there's questions, because naturally there will be questions about how a particular fact pattern might implicate the changes that were just negotiated in the contract, we've been talking about those. But I feel we've been, it's been a very sort of collaborative effort. City attorney took the lead on drafting, and then I just filled in where necessary to bring in the labor side of things. That's how I anticipate we would continue work, trying to sort of make sure we're not doing this. That my focus is on the labor and their
Firm has always been a boutique labor firm. We try to keep in that side.
Yeah.
And because we always work well with city attorney, other attorneys, because we say, you do your work and we have our expertise. And that has worked out for years with it. Not any kind of poaching or anything. Not it. We don't do that work.
Do you ever have a situation where one of those parties have some sort of formal supervision relationship with the other? Sort of.
in my experience, it's always been collaborative. I mean, and we take, direction from the client, obviously. If the client wants city attorney to take the lead on something, or they want us to take the lead, then that's what we'll do. But, in this particular situation, it was sort of work together. And that's what we've been.
Lastly, just a comment. I appreciate the quality. Mr.
Meadows?
Also, it's just a couple of questions, and congratulations on attorney, by the way. But now, do you have any other municipal clients in mid-Michigan? Wasn't clear on that.
Mid-Michigan, we do Eaton County. And we represent City of Lansing, but we don't really do their labor work. We do investigations and litigation for them.
Represent the Michigan Municipal Risk Management,
Yeah.
Right.
RMA, and they have many clients in mid. We get referred work,
Yeah.
so I'm all over Michigan doing litigation.
We don't, for labor work, it's really just Eaton County in the mid-Michigan. I don't know if they're in Genesee County, but I also do Davison Town.
How long was the contract that you have right now?
With
East Lansing.
how long is the contract?
How long was that contract, or is that contract?
I think we have a contract with.
So if we were to hire you as labor counsel, would you be looking for a specific contract?
Yeah, I mean, I think in my proposal, I attached a 3-year.
You're looking for a 3-year.
Yeah, I mean, we've been happy with the arrangement. The RFP requested a contract. So that was why we submitted.
And haven't had,
That is absolutely correct.
very interesting. I guess I never realized that.
That relationship,
Yeah.
it was, the business is built on good relationships, and we had that with the city of East Lansing, and they continually called us.
And if there was a 3-year contract, it locks in all of the cost per hour and all the other terms that you mentioned in your proposal. Great. Those are my only questions, and just echo what Dr. Altman just said. I'm very happy with the work we were.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Watson?
Yes, since you all have been with us for a long time, what changes have you seen working with different law firms, from Yaden to Foster Swift to Chubb?
I think I didn't really have a lot of interactions with Aiden. I don't know if it was the nature of different. I don't know if my involvement was not as day to day as it has been over the last, say, 5 or 6 years. The amount of work that I've done for the city has definitely increased in the last 5 or 6 years. So I never really had a whole lot of interactions with. When Foster Swift came on, the only really interactions we had, I think, were over the creation of the LEPAC ordinance. Beyond that, I can't really think of anything. Since Tony has come on, I feel like Tony and I have collaborated a lot more. Sometimes he'll talk to, we'll just talk to bounce ideas off of each other. Or he'll, fill me in on something. Maybe I didn't know all the facts, things like that. But in terms of like actual work, it's been, again, that's more at the direction of the city. If they want us to work together on projects, then we do. And that seems to be happening more frequently now than it ever has before. I've always found Tony and his office to be very easy to work with.
Same for the city managers. What's differences happen between the two city managers?
My seat, I mean, other than different management styles, different sort of expectations, the interactions have been the same. Most of my day-to-day content, when I'm dealing with the city, it's mostly going through human resource. If the city manager is getting involved, it's because the issue's been escalated to the city manager. Normally, I'm not dealing with the city manager on a regular basis. My contact is really with HR or department heads. And typically, the department heads that I talk to are just fire and police.
Question, I'm union, and I'm union in my day role. And so I was at the day job when Snyder made the changes where, was it police unions could negotiate for back pay, but the other unions could not. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that's a product of the strength of the police and fire unions in the state. They have very effective lobbying firms that work for them. I think, I don't want to go into politics, but I think obviously there's political reasons why certain groups were excluded from that, teachers being one. At the same time that there were lots of changes made to Teacher Tenure Act in Michigan and made it, many sort of subjects of bargaining were made to be prohibited for teachers, but no other union groups. So, there was some ideological sort of, I suppose, for that. PA 54 has been repealed, probably no. And so now any bargaining.
When did that happen?
24, July 1, 24.
So us council members, we're accountable. I'm accountable to the people through appointment or election. So how can your firm, with your legal context and background, work well with leaders like myself who do not have a legal background?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. And I would say that I think our job as lawyers is to provide legal advice to lay people. Like that's what we do. And a function of that is being able to communicate effectively what the issue is without going into the weeds on what the law is. And that's usually what we strive for, right? Like we talk about the law, but we talk about the law in terms that are understandable. We present the facts so that you, as a layperson, understand how those facts fit into the law, what the implications are of particular action. And I think that allows our knowledge to be imputed to you in a way that is understandable, and a way that allows you to make an informed decision given, you know, various options we present to you in our legal opinion or legal advice.
I'd like to add even, I think that you're absolutely right. What I like to do is I say, look, I owe it to you, let you know the basis of this lawsuit, what I discovered, what my opinion is. And I make sure you understand all that, because I don't make decisions. You make the decisions, but I want you to make them knowledgeable. I want you to know what, and I think major part of my job is risk analysis. What is your risk analysis? What are you looking at in terms of trying a case, settling a case? And that's my job when I do litigation. I always look, what is a risk analysis? And I want you to understand what my thought process was through that whole time period.
All have anything to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion? Would that, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, not in a formal sense, but we are a women-owned business. My partner and I business. We're, I guess, a double minority, I guess, because person of color as well.
Well, I taught DEI for the city of
There you
Southfield.
go.
I did all of their training on DEI for the last 2 years. So I did all their training. I worked with their DEI instructor. We collaborated, we got together, we figured out what you're going to say, what I'm going to say, and I thought we did a fabulous job. We did every employee in the entire city did a DEI training the entire last year. So I teach it.
One of my last questions are, as you know, our Independent Police Oversight Commission lacks dedicated legal and their guidelines were marked for updating because of changes that were made during collective bargaining process. Our Independent Police Oversight Commission does not have their own attorney. How would you support them? And if it were best to provide independent counsel to them, would you be able to take off your hats to respond to them? Or would you suggest that they have their own separate law firm that works in their best interests independently, and why?
So I would say that LEPAC is an extension of the city. Our client is the city. We represent the city. By extension, we represent LEPAC. If there are issues in which LEPAC feels it is adverse to the city, I would want to know why, because it would be like saying the Human Resources Department is adverse to the wastewater treatment plant, in the sense that they're both arms or, you know, departments of the city, but they're part of the same umbrella. Obviously, whether or not they should receive legal counsel separate from the attorneys that represent the city is a question for counsel. From my perspective, I don't know how there could be a conflict between LEPAC in the legal sense, how there could be a legal conflict between LEPAC and the city, because they are the city, which is in part, going into all of that, why we negotiated what we negotiated, but is in part why those negotiations went the way they did, because LEPAC is viewed as part.
And oftentimes I see you in closed session, as well as Chubb as well. But okay, actually, oftentimes closed sessions occur with attorneys, and I continually do feel lost, including when you've been in there. So, is there anything that you can think of that can be done differently so that I can follow just as fairly as those that have a law degree?
I encourage you to call me. I don't think you and I have ever spoken, but I have no problem if you want to call me and either before or after the closed session. Sometimes, we give you our legal opinions in advance, depending on how complicated the issues are. If you get a legal opinion and you read it and it doesn't make sense to you, I urge you to call me. Always available to have those conversations. I don't just talk to the city, the administration.
All right, I deeply appreciate that.
Yeah.
No one ever told me that,
Oh, well,
and that will be, very helpful and very helpful going for other council members who also don't have that legal background, but were elected or appointed by the people.
Ms. Watson, I am astonished that in closed sessions with me and Mr. Meadows and Ms. Sashatal and perhaps another attorney hired by the city, that you don't understand everything that we're saying. You have already hurt you have already hurt my feelings tonight, and I appreciate it. Do you have any questions off the?
No,
Okay. I just want to confirm a couple things. So at this point, at least subject to negotiation or selection, you would be proposing a 3-year contract with a $190 hourly rate for partners, $170 hourly rate for associates, and $100 hourly rate for paralegals.
Yeah.
And then the second year would go up to 200, 185, and 100. And the third year would be 210, 195, and 110.
yes.
I just wanted to confirm that. That's the only questions I have. Anything else from council?
This is, I would say that I have a not background.
That's actually become clear.
Uh, Or when I'm listening to Gary. So I think, we that this is not one that I practiced in, and I appreciate the thing that you tell us where we should go, what you recommend. I'm learning. And I'll call you too, if I don't understand.
You all
Robert
set,
has my cell
council?
phone, so.
Dr. Albin, you all set? Okay. Thanks a lot for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
For having us.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Bye, thank you.
Still time.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Well, there's a story all behind that, if you want to know. I mean, but I corrected it. I'm so sorry. Wasn't intended.
Okay, first of all, thank you very much for coming in tonight. We appreciate it. We appreciate your interest in providing services to the city of East Lansing. We're going to try to keep this relatively informal. And so what I'd ask is that you spend 5 or 10 minutes sort of giving us background that you want to give us, sort of up to you. And then what we're going to do, just sequentially, each council member is going to have questions for you. Just go down the line. Each council member will ask the questions they want to ask through that process. And then there may be follow-up questions. So please begin.
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to come before you. And my name is Joe Colaney. I'm one of the partners out of our Lansing office, and with me is Beth McDonald White. She's out of our Grand Rapids office, and Marshall Great. They're both gonna. He's also out of our Grand Rapids office. Reason for that is I'm primarily the municipal attorney out of our Lansing office, but we have, it's indicated in our proposal, we have 4 offices throughout the state of Michigan. In fact, in a way of background, I'm usually all over the state. So is Beth, and so is Marshall. We have clients all over the state of Michigan that we provide services to. In the way of background, I've been an attorney in Michigan a little over 30 years now, and primarily practice in the area of municipal law. I came from the public sector, and I believe Beth has also, and she can kind of give a little background on that. I originally was an assistant state's attorney in Chicago as a prosecutor in County, Illinois. That's where I went to law school. I came back to Michigan with my wife and family here in Michigan, and for a good chunk of my professional life, I served Oakland County, Michigan. I was first in there as an assistant prosecutor in the prosecutor's office, then went to corporation counsel, and later I was deputy drain commissioner under the county drain commissioner. That office, in fact, prepared me for a lot of different things, primarily because unlike a lot of drain commissioners' offices, that office is actually had over like 400 employees. So we had 2 unions, and I was the general counsel as well as the deputy drain commissioner, including areas where we had to condemn property for easements, interlocal agreements, water and sewer financing. So I've been involved in municipal government for a very long time. In addition, I served 16 years, so I've been on that side of the table as a township trustee in a township that faced a lot of development issues. Was also on the planning commission for a period of time as well. So I come with a lot of and I want to say this generally for all of us that are sitting up here. We come with a lot of experience in the municipal area, and I think Beth said it best. And I'm going to let her tell it because she tells the story a little bit better about what it means to be a municipal attorney. So I'm going to turn it over and give Beth a little bit of opportunity to kind of talk about her background, and then maybe give that kind of little anecdotal.
Sure, of course. So thank you, Joe.
And please make sure to pull the mics close and talking to them.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Is this better? There we go. So thank you, Joe, and thank you for your time tonight. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. As I was telling Joe while we were sitting outside, at one of my first bosses, a municipal attorney 25 years ago, and I've done nothing but municipal law for the last 25 years, that municipal law really is the last bastion of general practice of law. And so it's just wide open. It can be anything. It can be contracts, it can be torts, it can be land use. It's all over the place. And so that's what I like about it. And that's why I've been able to do it. No 2 days ever the same. And twice. So my personal background is I started out 25 years ago. I did municipal prosecutions for the city of Dearborn. I went to the city of Muskegon. I was assistant city attorney in Muskegon. I went to the city of Grand Rapids for 15 years. I was assistant and then deputy city attorney in the city of Grand Rapids. I was in corporation counsel for Kalamazoo County for 2 years, and then went to private practice, and now am at Clark Hill doing municipal law, serving municipalities, everything from Mackinac Bridge to Berrien County in the southwest side of the state to the Grand Rapids area to Detroit suburban communities, doing a lot of work all over the state. So that's my background. I went to University of Detroit Law School and undergrad, University of Michigan Dearborn, and I took 1 year off in 2022 and taught American government to high school kids. I thought that was the most important thing I was doing at that time. Yeah, glad to be here and glad to any questions you might have.
I also want to thank you for your time tonight and inviting us. I'm Marshall Great. I come from the private sector. I've not worked for a public employer, but since 1985, when I started practicing in Michigan, I've been involved with labor and employment law. And I would say for the last couple decades, that exclusively it has involved representing public sector clients. So I provide almost every service, and our team will be able to cover any service relating to labor and employment law, Act 312 interest arbitration for public safety, collective bargaining, unfair labor practices, arbitrations, contract administration, proactive advice, agency representation, whether it's the EEOC, Michigan Department of Civil Rights, and advice and compliance with all the state and federal employment laws. So that's been my background, and I've enjoyed it very much. Just recently finished up representing the city of Mount Pleasant in an Act 312 interest arbitration, which we took back to mediation and successfully negotiated contracts rather than going through the torturous process of interest arbitration. That's a little bit about me.
Well, I think you also, one of the things you neglected to talk about is Marshall's also a constitutional scholar as well. He's one of several in our firm, but in particular in the area of free speech and defending municipalities and things like that. We are experts in the field of Open Meetings Act, FOIA, condemnation, election law. All of us have had opportunities to draft ordinances. Our litigation experience, we just represented the city of Marshall in a successful challenge to a zoning in an Act 425 annexation situation, and we're successful in the Court of Appeals. The case is still pending before the Michigan Supreme Court. They haven't granted leave on the application for leave to appeal. So we have a very broad bench on litigation as well. Another thing that I'm also a bond attorney. I handle financial issuance of obligations on behalf of municipalities for infrastructure projects. I've worked with EDCs. I've worked with LDFAs, TIFAs, DDAs. Those are areas that our team frequently works in that kind of area as well.
Dr. Altman.
Thank you for being here tonight. So I have several questions. The first one is, what's your understanding of the scope and volume of our needs as a city of East Lansing for general counsel specifically? Do you have the capacity to meet them? And how do you know that?
Excellent question. It's not unusual for us to, I will say this, both Beth and I work for a particular municipality that's an urban community, and she's currently the interim. They actually have an in-house city council or city attorney. That city attorney has resigned and went on to other places. So Beth has actually been serving as the interim city council or city attorney for that municipality. So in my case, I have no idea exactly of your full capacity, but we have a generalized understanding overall because we've done these things before as general counsel. We have a general understanding of the things. Like we know that there's city prosecutions of city that's going to have to be addressed. Primarily myself or Beth will be overseeing that area with probably an associate that will be working with us on prosecutions. The other areas, there's really two other areas. We talked about this before. There's the general litigation. If you have a major litigation piece, most of us would probably be the ones monitoring it, making sure that, but we have litigators who would be the primarily responsible for the handling of that litigation. So we have a very significant bench that can handle that. The third area of the law or municipal practice is everything else, right? It's the legal memorandums. It's responding to or helping with communications with either other communities or people in the community. It may be corporations or development companies. We do all that. We would assist. So we know that if it's a condemnation matter or ordinance drafting or those issues, we've done all that work before. What you have here with our bench, I should say, you have a lot of experience. We're not going to put necessarily young people who don't have our broad experience. We're going to get your answer fairly quick. And our goal is when there's a question, we want to make sure you get it within 24 hours, or at least respond that we will get it to you in some way.
And I just added some supplement. What you need to know, you're seeing three faces, but we practice together in municipal law as a team. We have at least 15 attorneys in our Michigan offices that practice municipal law. And we frequently Zoom together, discuss latest issues, scenarios. We have a deep bench of expertise that can bring quick answers to problems.
I would estimate an operation the size of East Lansing, you'd require more than one attorney. If you had your own in-house office, you would require more than one attorney full-time. Likely two, maybe three would be my estimate. And anyone that would come to you as one attorney, as a sole practitioner, and say, I can do everything in municipal law, I would contend they don't understand municipal law. They don't understand the depth and the breadth of the area that we're talking about and the need for expertise in a dozen different areas on any given day. And so to bring in a firm like Clark Hill that has that capacity to be able to not only have the face that you deal with on a day-to-day and have that accountability and that contact and that person that builds a network with your different departments, with the experts that you already have on staff, to have someone that doesn't say from a top-down sort of legal on high opinion, this is how you should be doing things, but would listen to the department heads, understand their expertise, understand what they're really doing every day. That's really what you as a city would be looking for. And I think to have a firm the size of Clark Hill that doesn't have to go outside every time an unusual question comes up is really best and most efficient way to go. I mean, I obviously have my bias because I understand the team. That's what we needed.
So you feel that you have the capacity to cover 2 to 3 FTE, the amount of work that would be done by 2 to 3 FTEs?
I think that we could, and I think you would need it at different times. The nice part of having a big firm that could do it is the flow that you can have people come in and out on projects as needed and not have to go out. If you have a small firm that has to go out and contract with other firms in order to bring expertise to bear. I had a city just last week that said, we need intellectual property help because we want to copyright our logo. I was able to get an intellectual property attorney on the phone that afternoon and get started on that project. That sort of thing, which, you know, wouldn't be available in-house with a small team, even with a small firm.
To give you another niche, we have cyber security attorneys, experts on those type of issues.
What can we expect in terms of a turnaround time for an ordinance or a legal opinion?
Well, I think obviously it would depend on the nature of the ordinance itself, but in many cases, depending on what it is, you don't reinvent the wheel. You begin first with one that has been done. I'm not going to. Attorneys will find that, but they're going to craft it according to whatever the desires of the council, because the council sets policy. I would think that if I had to do a marijuana ordinance, for example, which we had recently with one of our other city councils, we were done with it fairly quick. But the process took longer because of the input that had to come from the community and from the council. And so that process took much longer, but we were there with every step of the way to put that together. So.
And that first turnaround was a matter of days, a matter of weeks.
If you're talking about a marijuana ordinance, we turned it over in 1 week. We did the initial draft of it, and largely because we had other communities that had already that we represented that also had marijuana ordinances. A lot of times communities will prepare their own ordinances and ask us to review them from the legal standpoint. And so that could also short circuit things, but we could certainly turn around within a week.
So your client would have many representatives, right, including council members, the city manager, and staff. What's your process for managing communications, for coordinating assignments to different projects, and for tracking projects to make sure they're all getting done?
Well, I'll be the principal attorney on if Clark Hill were selected, and what we would do is I would be managing, the projects, and I would be responsible for those projects to be handled by other attorneys if I wasn't doing the work myself.
Yeah,
And I track them. We have an internal process that we track everything. And it really depends on how you would like to do this. If you would like each matter that is created, we can create a separate, create a separate matter. So every litigation matter would have a separate matter in our firm, and that would be assigned and tracked that way.
What's your process for ensuring that your written work is of the highest possible quality?
So that's a great question as well. First of all, the three of us produce quite high quality work. But typically what we do is even when I prepare a brief or an argument or a memorandum, I will run it by another municipal attorney in our firm or another attorney. And the same goes for if I've assigned work to be research, I'm going to look at that research as well. We have internal tools to do all that.
What's your process for tracking legal and other developments outside the city that might be relevant to the city and communicating those developments to the city?
There's a couple approaches. We're all part of the different organizations. Beth is part of the Michigan Municipal Attorneys Association. I'm part of Michigan Association of County Drain Commissioners, Michigan Municipal League. I was part of MTA. I'm not part of MTA now, but we frequently are part of a broader group of the legal community as well as the state bar. So we will be tracking. We certainly track all those developments. A good point is, these organizations will typically point out new, legislation that is being sponsored. It's kind of published. We're all on listservs, so we get that kind of information. And quite honestly, there's times when, as a council, you might have some thought about a particular piece of legislation you want to have sponsored, and we can help you there as well. One of our government, we have a government relations, I think it's called government.
Yeah, government, which is basically, we have a lobbying, people that do lobbying work at the state level and at the federal level. But I'd like to go back and emphasize again, like I said, we practice together as a team. And one thing that those of us in the municipal field do is we meet on Zoom a few times a week.
As a group.
As a group, and we discuss the latest legal developments, the latest issues affecting our clients, solicit advice on various scenarios. So we internally keep each other up to date. One hot issue now is the DEI issues coming from the federal government, and we've had discussions on those. So we have not only external organizations that we belong to, and the listserv that was mentioned, where we keep track of the latest published cases by Michigan courts and the filings in state and federal court, but also each other that follow the news, legal news or whatever. So I will say, I think we stay on top of legal developments very well.
The five of us don't always agree on legal issues. Two of us are attorneys, but all of us get into the legal issues. And we all have equal authority. How do you navigate those disagreements?
Want me to answer?
I'll defer to you. It's fine.
Well, I've
Because I
had,
actually been in that situation, so.
ultimately, as outside legal counsel, we are the counsel to you, the city commission, as a body of the whole. So ultimately, we take our direction from a majority vote or action. I think all of us here at this table is going to tell you, if we're asked for a legal opinion, give you our unvarnished legal opinion based on our understanding of the law. And we try the best to put aside personal biases or whatever, but I know those of us sitting at this table will tell you what our best understanding of the law is. Policy making is going to be up to you as a commission. I hope that helps answer the question.
It does. I'm going to pick on the mayor a little bit. So if the mayor happens to express a legal opinion on something and you happen to disagree with it.
Well, that's not going to change my legal opinion. I have a statement. I charge the same whether you follow my legal advice or not.
What's your view of an active client who engages closely with your work product and may have a lot of input?
Okay, I think I can answer that. I actually have a client that I'm involved in a big project that's been taking quite a long time. The dams that broke up down in Midland and Gladwin County. And the principal of that is a former corporate executive from Dow Chemical, and probably one of the most hands-on leaders I've encountered as a client. And most of the time, 90%, 99% of the time, he's usually correct on just about everything. But I work very well with.
For the record.
Correct on everything.
That's fair.
So, but in any case, I work very well with, in my guidance and my legal opinion. I try and develop that relationship. You got to trust my opinion. You got to trust me. And that's one thing you're going to get, is you're going to get extreme loyalty to the council. And Marshall indicated, you're going to get an unvarnished opinion. If you want me to, you want a legal opinion, I'm going to give you your legal opinion. I'm going to provide you those options. If it requires providing options. If there's an issue here that you need to be concerned with from a risk management standpoint, because that's really what most of the time, what a legal opinion is dealing, really trying to explain to you, what are your risks? And are you willing to take those risks, right? And respond to them accordingly.
A lot of our council work happens during evenings and weekends because we have day jobs. Are you okay with periodic communications in the evening or on a Saturday or a Sunday, whether it's by email, text, or phone?
We get that all the time. It's not an issue.
Not an issue.
You wouldn't be in this line of work if that were an issue.
No. I think I get emails sometimes at 3 a.m. from clients, so
You will get some of those.
it's not unusual.
We check our devices throughout the weekend. Maybe we're not married to them necessarily, but there's several times in the weekend I'll check my emails, see if I need to respond. That's typical of a Clark Hill attorney. It's part of the territory.
Last question. We had an appeals board meeting recently that took 2.5 hours to do probably half an hour of work. The members are subject matter experts, but they're not experts in procedure. It was unclear what the applicant was really appealing. And they went around and around not knowing what the right motion was. So this cost everybody a lot of time, right? Including the attorney who was there. So in a situation like that, what can you do to keep a meeting like that on track? In terms of preparation and input during.
And Beth, you have a comment on that by any chance?
Yeah, just, yeah, no, it's the role of the chair to run the meeting. If the chair seeks assistance, then it's the role of the attorney to try to navigate that. The scenario you describe, some assistance from the attorney might be helpful to try to keep things on track, to maybe interject or request, maybe, do we want a point of order? Or even to request, do we want to adjourn and take a break? And then do you want to have a sidebar with the chair and say, okay, this is what's going on here. Seems to be, here's the two things we're here to talk about, and we're going different directions. Let's try to keep ourselves focused.
What about coming in with some sample motions prepared?
I recommend that, and alternatives if you can do it.
Correct.
In case things go this way, this is the one we're having. If it goes south on us, this is the other. I'm doing that with another community this week. We've got 3 different motions prepared because we don't know what's going to happen there.
Exactly. I mean, typically, if you're having a meeting or if it's a special meeting, the lawyer should know what that special meeting is about and have prepared some sort of draft motions for the board, the council to consider. And so, the council's there also to, like the other night, I had a late evening, and we did a supplemental resolution to on a bond authorizing resolution from a year ago, and it went through 3 or 4 different reiterations up until the point of the meeting. So I had discussions with financial advisor, I had discussions with other folks, but by the time we got it to the board meeting, it was presented in a way that the council could understand what they were looking at, what they were approving, and why. And I was there to provide the reasons why they should adopt the ordinance. And that's kind of, if you're looking for guidance, that's kind of what the attorneys, normally there should be like a deadline, right, for when things are the packets are getting prepared for the meeting, and hopefully those draft resolutions are in there or under consideration.
Yeah, if you're going to have legal counsel at a meeting, and to the extent you can be proactive, obviously we like to help orchestrate the meeting. Understanding you can't prepare for every contingency, but it seems like if there's time and the attorney can do a lot to help orchestrate either with the motions agenda or whatever. Certainly in closed session meetings, we come prepared with motions. And of course, our legal opinion and whatever else may be required.
I did have one final question. In your proposal, you mentioned that in your experience, the fixed fee tends to work best, but then you also provided hourly rates. So I was a little confused on whether you propose fixed fee or hourly rates.
So in some circumstances, municipalities will want something like a fixed fee for like a retainer for the month. So we've had, if there's something that would work for the city, we can arrange that. For example, let's say, we propose an X number of dollars and you're going to have this many hours of dedicated service for that whole month. And if we go over that, there might be an hourly fee after that. So there's a fixed fee associated with that. And we can do that. We can work with you. I have another client that says, well, before I call you up and ask you to do any work, would you provide us an estimate of what the particular time might take to do that? And we try and work. That's another fixed fee type arrangement. This is a smaller municipality. They don't budget necessarily their legal fees as other municipalities might. And so it was really important for them to know, okay, we need you to come in and draft this contract. How much would you charge us for drafting this intergovernmental contract, for example? So we can put together a proposal for that. It's always hard to judge it, in terms of how much time things will take, but we can work however you want to work with when it comes to the fees. We're very sensitive. We understand that, municipalities have an obligation to the citizenry and your budgets. And we recognize that, and we want to work with you as any way we can make that work for you as well.
For your answers, I'm finished, Mayor.
Mr. Meadows.
Dr. Altman indicated, thanks for coming in. Thanks for putting a proposal in for us. I'm going to try to follow up on a couple of questions and be a little bit shorter with what I'm asking. You did indicate in terms of a potential fee, $750,000. Did you calculate the number of hours you think you would be devoting to us in calculating that? Top rate, hourly rate that you had. One FTE would be about 728,000. So that's 2,080 hours in that area. Did you calculate more hours or how you would calculate your 750?
So again, going to the question that Dr. Altman kind of related to, we're not as, I don't know exactly the amount of level that you're going to expect. When we calculated that number, it was based on, the scope of services that you had. We didn't look at specifically the hours associated with that.
Did you look at, any past budgets that we had in the legal services?
Yes.
That came out of that? Okay. And that
We
is,
know that you had,
that's in
you had
the
two contracts.
ballpark.
Yeah, you had two contracts, I think, with covered.
Yeah, it was kind of, and we looked at the courts, the caseload listed for that.
For the 54P.
And I've got just a couple of questions on some of the specific things, because there are things that may be cooking with East Lansing. It looks like you have expertise to deal with these. Particularly Beth, we have talked, some of us have talked a little bit about a fire authority or a recreational authority as a way of removing money from our general fund and still providing quality services for community. Have you handled those things previously? It looks like you have it listed as one of your expertise areas.
Joe has done even more of that than I have as well. So, yeah.
So in the area of fire authorities, actually working on one where we're dissolving a fire authority. One of the communities not too far from here is actually in a different county, actually, was looking at possibly doing that. But I've worked with some communities that have pursued Act 33 special assessment for police and fire protection. and assisted at least 2 communities in setting that up, and a third one as well that decided not to go that route. In terms of that, they decided to do a separate millage for the police and fire. But we have, there's different options under the laws related to police and fire protection that we can look at. Again, Act 33 is the one that comes to mind. Fire authorities is under the other, the act permitting fire authorities. And by creating that, you can, they obviously have the ability to proceed with a ballot proposal for a millage.
Then, I think it's you again, Joe, but 425 agreements.
Additional transfers of
Yeah.
annexation.
We have, I think, 3 that, and a couple of other agreements that are not 425s, but have the same effect. Do you have any that you're doing right now that we could take a look at?
Yes, we do. Yes, I do. There's a few. I just did one up in Saginaw County related to the semiconductor project that's going on up there. So I can give you an example of what we did there. And there were actually 2 separate agreements, one with the city of Saginaw and our client, and a neighboring township for water and sewer.
So they're also on our municipal prosecution. Both of you are listed on your little chart here, but got a guy named Jay Fleming on there as well, which I don't think we have a bio for.
He's an
Tell me
associate.
who would actually be doing the municipal prosecutions?
Right now, probably myself and Beth. And Jay, if he's available, he's an associate with our firm, but he also is kind of around different lawyers in our office, but he's a young attorney, very interested in litigation. I learned a long time ago that, municipal prosecutions are probably the best training ground for young attorneys. So, that's getting your feet wet. I remember getting thrown into as a young attorney, and that's what I did. So, yeah.
So we have, we've issued a 30-day termination with the current attorney that we have for municipal prosecutions. How long would you think it would take you to accumulate those cases and continue the prosecutions that are scheduled? What kind of time do you need in order to take over that particular part of the practice, if you were hired?
I would say about 60 days. 60 days, yeah. I mean, I would be overpromising if I said 30 days, but I would want to know just exactly where things are at. I think 60 days would be on the outer scope of that, between 30 and 60 days. Yep.
One item, and I think you answered an earlier question like this. It's extremely important that all the council members be aware of everything at all times. In other words, you can't just communicate with one person on council and hope that they tell everybody else. We have to have individual communication on every issue. Is that how you've been operating with your other clients as well?
It differs. Sometimes you go through the city manager. A lot of municipalities will have us go through this, so the city managers, the communique, unless directly come in as on a closed session or something like that. Rarely do I communicate. I shouldn't say rarely. That's not fair, because with the client, we're steady contact with the mayor all the time, and that's a different kind of makeup, because the mayor,
Strong mayor form of government.
strong mayor form of government.
That's different.
So, yeah, if you do.
Go ahead, please.
My experience, when I have a board that I'm working with, it's a matter of client management, of reminding the board maybe that I'm not an individual attorney for each individual member. I represent the board as a whole. If I have a board member that wants to give me assignments and wants me to go maybe down a path that departs from the direction I'm understanding from the rest of the board, then it's my job to say, I really need a vote of 4 people here in order to go forward with this project. So you can't, otherwise you can be sent in 7 different directions by 7 different people. I have a board that one member wants to FOIA documents about other members on the board, and we're constantly going in circles with FOIAs. So that response is, you can file as many FOIAs as you want. I'm going to give the answers, the responses to everybody that's on the board. Everybody's going to get the same information as much as I can manage to do that.
Our particular guidelines for the board, for the council, provide that any council member can ask for an opinion of the city attorney, as long as they're supposed to let everybody else know that they've asked for that opinion. You don't have a problem with complying with something like that?
If that's the board's wish, and the members are keeping each other in the loop, then that's fine. But I would not give that opinion directly to that individual. I would give that opinion to everybody that's on.
And that is fine. That would be my expectation, especially. All right, thank you very much.
Councilmember Watson.
I just wanted to ask again, I have a humming behind me, and if anyone asks for people to speak up, it's me typically. So please make sure you're speaking in your mics. Your mic is great. It's picking you up. And so what's the name of, you said Joe for the prosecution. Was that, Joe, what's his last name?
Jay Fleming?
Jay
And-
Fleming, and he's on the list.
Correct.
The original,
He's an associate, yeah.
original list that we have. Okay. Thank you.
But again, he's an associate. He would be, it's whoever I would likely assign to assist with that, but he's one of the associates in the Lansing office. So we actually have 2 new associates that came in as in the last couple of months in the Lansing office, and I have not approached them at this time, but they're also available.
So I'll start with my questions. While attorneys uphold the law, I'm also interested in examples of progressive legal work that aims to advance community interests. Please provide examples of progressive work that you've supported or done.
Well, something that I've worked on is to, is my microphone okay? Okay. To institute stakeholder meetings as part of, for instance, if you get an assignment that says we're going to draft a new ordinance on a specific topic, to sit down and to put together a group of who are the stakeholders, who are the people in the community that are impacted by this, how do they feel about this? Let's assemble that group. Let's have that. It takes an extra step or two, takes a little bit more time, but I have found that by putting that out at the front end, instead of putting out a work product that might be an excellent work product, but at a public meeting, you're met with this firestorm of people that are going to be impacted by this, who feel they didn't have any voice in the process. I have found that to introduce that in as many clients situations as I can, to get the stakeholders out front at the beginning of any process where you're trying to introduce a regulation or an ordinance, it seems to help make the whole process more progressive, more transparent, and just at least anticipating the resistance. Sometimes you find out very quickly it's a bad idea, and that saves everyone a lot of trouble and expense. So that's one thing that I have found that has worked.
Would agree with that. It's part of our especially when we get into zoning issues, or we get into a annexation issue or a big development, you're really identifying who the stakeholders are, who you're going to have to address. I mean, any kind of major development could upset the surrounding communities or businesses. You want to make sure that there's some buy-in there. So.
Next question. Council members are accountable to the people through appointment or election. How can your firm, with your legal context and background, work well with leaders like myself who don't share a legal background?
Well, most of our clients don't share a legal background, and hopefully part of our skill set is to communicate in such a way that the lay people who do not have a legal background understand our advice, recommendations, and ideas, and that's part of what we do.
I could add to that. I
Sure.
think that training also is key to what we do. Trying to educate elected officials on the requirements of the law and as things change, and to try to prepare and anticipate those questions that may come up, and to prepare elected officials for some of the issues that they may be dealing with. I think that's helpful at the front end.
The other thing to add to that as well is that the city operates under a charter, and it's very important that we're not all necessarily familiar with the council members that are, elected or appointed, aren't always familiar with all the nuances of the charter. And along the way of our role is what's being discussed or proposed, is it in compliance with the charter? And is it in compliance with the law, state law? And local government only has that power which the legislature has designated or delegated. And so it's really important that when it comes to certain things, whether it's a contract or I guess I can put it in perspective, not many people realize that government is limited to what they can do. They can't lend their credit. They can't expend monies unless there's authorization. And so that's really where some of the disputes sometimes arise, is over what you can spend money on, right? And how you go about doing that, because it's taxpayers' money, right? And so we have to make sure that that's all in compliance, and we're there to help train and assist and guide as much as we, as our role is dictated by your own charter. Your charter has specific responsibilities for the city attorney. So.
Next question. Our East Lansing Independent Police Oversight Commission lacks dedicated legal counsel and has had guidelines marked for updating because of changes that were made during the collective bargaining process with police unions. Our Independent Police Oversight Commission, again, does not have their own attorney. How would you support them? And if it were best to provide independent counsel to them, would you take off some hats, or would there be a different person to respond? Or would you suggest they have their own separate law firm that works in the best interest independently, and why?
So I would need to look at the requirements for the Independent Police Oversight Committee, and its, for lack of a better word, charter. And I have not looked at that, so I apologize for that. But if it's a recommending body, and then the ultimate decision is the city council, and I don't know if that's the case. It sounds like if it's an independent body, it makes the final decision. That there's a difference between when it comes to legal representation. So we were appointed, Clark Hill were appointed as city attorney, we represent the city council. And if the independent police body is a separate legal entity or an entity that's been created, it should have its own legal counsel. No different than separate authorities at times. Sometimes there's not an issue with conflict of interest, but we have strict rules as lawyers as to who our client is and where our privileges lie and where our responsibilities lie.
I just had a question. Would the purpose of this body be to handle appeals for members of the public or from interactions with the police department? Is that what that would do? Okay.
It is titled the Independent Police Oversight Commission, but it is a commission of the city of East Lansing that makes recommendations to the city council.
Okay.
Sometimes to the city manager or sometimes to the police chief. Am I right on that, Robert? Okay.
So if that's the
Cutting
case,
grade. Go ahead.
if that's the case, then having its own independent legal counsel is probably not necessary, because it's a recommending body. No different than in many communities, you have a planning commission. Planning commission doesn't have a separate legal counsel typically. It's the city attorney that represents the entire city, because they recommend and then the city council makes the decision. So.
Thank you. Just an example of something that happened. There was an administrative law opinion that wasn't broken down enough for our lay people on our Independent Police Oversight Commission. And so the support was lacking from any of the legal counsel that we had to answer their questions and address their comments because they were feeling a kind of way because it changed the work that they were doing. And as lay people, they deserved that legal breakdown from someone. And it was like, well, is it because they need their own legal counsel? Is it because it's difficult to represent the police, represent the city, and represent an Independent Police Oversight Commission? And so,
Well, representing the police, I assume that your law enforcement rank and file are represented by a union.
yeah, our labor attorney. Yeah.
Okay. What you're describing, it seems to me, again, goes back to, and I don't want to be critical about the legal counsel you had, but if he was trying to explain an administrative process or administrative decision, sounds like there was a failure of communication on the part of the attorney to articulate what needed to be heard by the independent body. I mean, I do, as was stated, I do have a niche of constitutional law practice. It is the cases dealing with freedom of expression can be very complicated, and analysis can be very complicated. But it's my task to try and explain it to the client in terms that they understand, and I can help them solve a problem. So.
Thank you. Next question. How can we analyze prosecution reports that include demographics to gain insights into the prosecutorial workload and outcomes?
That would take some analysis. We'd have to really look at what is exactly that work that you'd be looking for, and what results would you be trying to achieve in breaking down the data. There's experts out there that manage those sort of analytical projects. That's not typically a legal question for attorneys to solve, but if I understand the assignment correctly, it would involve breaking down all sorts of data as provided by the court, and then trying to analyze the way that in which the prosecution is either shaping policy or affecting policy. Is that what we're talking about?
What would you share with counsel? There were members that didn't feel like we heard enough from our prosecutor. So what type of information would you supply to counsel so that we could follow along, or so that we could understand what was happening?
Well, the state website has some overarching statistics on the numbers of cases and the results of those cases. How many cases are brought? How many tickets are written? How many of them go to a bench trial? How many go to a jury trial? How many are nollie-prost? And how many result in a conviction, and that sort of thing. So you can get a pretty granular representation, and I think you can, if you have the right data, can use GIS and other tools to see which parts of the city are most impacted by those enforcement actions, that sort of thing. And that might be something that would be of interest to policymakers, for instance.
So as a group that serves as municipal prosecution, there's no information that you really give to the city council or the mayor or the managers regarding the work.
I think the short answer is that we take the direction from the city council. If that's information that is available, we would provide it. Yeah, the idea that's a pretty fluid operation when you go to the court. When you're in court, you're discussing the civil infractions and the tickets that are brought before us by the police department. You've got to deal with police officers not showing up. You've got a lot of things going on there. But if there's some sort of data that would be part of that discussion, we would have that discussion with the city council is what you're looking for.
Two more questions.
Sure.
Considering the current administration's actions that are seen as undermining DEI, and recognizing this council's commitment to these values as well as the city's commitment, how and in what ways has your firm been working to support DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Well, I can tell you internally, Clark Hill has received, what is it, the Mansfield certification for our DEI efforts inside the law firm, and we're very proud of that. So our law firm is very committed to diversity in DEI. We have helped clients review their DEI programs to ensure they're going to be compliant with state and federal law. I remind clients, public clients, that we have an obligation to follow the Michigan Department of Civil Rights Act. In addition, our state constitution, and obviously federal law as well. I mean, we have been asked to do a hands-on review of DEI programs to see if they're stepping outside the legal bounds of what's permitted in terms of affirmative action. So we have given advice on that. But we would work with the city council and the city in providing legal advice with respect to your DEI program. Our job is to keep you safe within the legal guardrails to the extent we can.
And last question, could you outline your firm's approach to handling the 2025 executive orders and your firm's commitment to upholding the law? And when I say that, I'm saying that under the assumption that these executive orders are illegal and that some of the actions that are attempting to be taken are illegal. So my ask is, in 2025, with the executive orders that have come through, where has your firm stood?
Well, I have only become involved in one executive order, and that's dealing with the elimination of the Department of Education. Because some of my labor and employment law practice does touch public school districts. And I gave my opinion that that order is constitutionally invalid because the United States Congress in 1979 approved the Department of Education. And it's my opinion that even under Article 2 of the United States Constitution, which vests executive authority within the president would need an act of Congress to terminate a department that the Congress has authorized. I want to tell you though, that's something I can comment on. I have not become involved in examining other executive orders, and some may be illegal, some may be legal. We'll have to find out through the litigation process. I guess I'm going to take my attorney hat off. I love history, and I have more than passing knowledge on presidential history. I will tell you that our current president definitely is determined to test the boundaries of the Constitution, and we're going to see how well it works. But other than that specific executive order. I have not been asked to look at other executive orders, and I would hesitate to give an opinion until I looked at the order and the law and constitutional law.
Okay, I'm gonna start with the always dangerous courtroom introduction, which is I have a few questions for you. But I want to kind of keep it to a few, and I want to kind of return to nuts and bolts. So I just want to confirm, and thank you for the presentations. I mean, we read all your documents, but I just want to confirm your hourly rates other than the district court prosecution rates would be $250 to $350 for a member. I assume a member is an owner. Okay. And then $250 to $275 for a senior attorney, senior counsel. I assume that's not an owner
That
or
would
a
be correct.
partner in our terminology.
Right.
Okay. And $250 for an associate and $150 an hour for a paralegal. Okay. And then for district court prosecution services, all attorneys would be at $200 an hour and paralegals would still be billed at $150. Okay, then segueing, and I may have overlooked this, okay, but can I make the assumption that your bills would be in tenths of an hour?
They are correct.
Okay. And so just to follow up on the prior questions, one of the ways the city could keep track of what's going on in the district court prosecutions is, and again, I'm assuming this, please correct me, if in fact we receive bills for district court prosecutions, they would be identified to a certain case.
I haven't thought, we could do it that way,
So
but
you,
it would be normally on a district court matter, it would be based on the whole the time expended for that particular day at the district court. We normally, we wouldn't do that, but if that's what you would prefer, normally we set up a matter.
I understand.
Yeah, so you know that part, but if we're going to do that, we would have to come up with a different system, and we certainly
Okay.
could do that.
So the habit you have in your law firm is you would essentially bill the number of hours per day in tenths of an hour in prosecution services, correct?
Correct.
So that we would receive a monthly bill for prosecution services separate and apart from other services,
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
And in that way, we would have a specific indication of what hours and tenths of an hour were spent on prosecution for that time period, correct?
Correct.
And then flipping back to your, I think it's page 11, and I understand, at least I think I understand part of the drill here, but you have a list of clients. I assume that's clients that may have been past clients, but you list Ingham County. Are you currently, without disclosing anything that's confidential, are you currently representing Ingham County?
Not the county.
I'll get there.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
All right. Are you currently representing the Ingham County Drain Commissioner on anything?
Yes,
Okay. Is that a regular representation?
yes. But it's on per drainage district, so it's depending on.
I
the drainage.
understand that. And
Okay.
do I recall correctly, you used to have somebody here locally that was sort of the drain guru who's now retired? Or am I got the wrong law firm? Never mind. Don't worry about it. And so do you also currently provide services to the Ingham County Treasurer?
Yes.
What kind of services?
One of our partners, Charlie Lawler, does a lot of work with county treasurers throughout the state, and I think he handles a lot of foreclosure, tax foreclosure issues on behalf of the county.
So just assume for the sake of the hypothetical that the city of East Lansing with some regularity gets into interactions with the county drain commissioner. How would you handle that potential conflict?
Well, that would be a direct conflict, and that would require most likely a waiver from either client to step aside. We couldn't do a direct conflict.
Okay.
So our firm would probably not be able to represent the drain commissioner on that issue, and we would not be able to represent the city of East Lansing in that area.
And I think you also listed as a Delta Township that you did work for. Did I see there?
Yes,
Delta, Delta?
recently I've done some bond work.
Okay, all right. All right, I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Yeah, and those couple of those things, a lot of those, you mentioned something real quick, and I just want to clarify. In some of those municipalities, we come in as special counsel.
I
A lot
understand.
of times their general counsel will say, hey, we have a special expertise, but bring in Clark.
Yeah, but the purpose of my question was to suss out, and so the Ingham County Drain Commissioner, you're not acting as special counsel there.
No.
You're continuing counsel for the Drain Commission. And I guess I should ask this. So on the non-district court prosecution services, do you bill by item, by case, hourly, and tenths of an hour?
Yes.
Thank you.
I just have one follow-up. I know we talked about, you predicted about 60 days it would take you to transition into the prosecutorial, wickety whack. I'm curious about your approach to transition in general, recognizing you'd be new to East Lansing. We are diverse, have intellectual depth as a university town. We have a newish city manager, and, a long time set of ordinances on the book. So I'm just curious, in that context, plus our staff, because we didn't really talk much about that, because there would be engagement, obviously, with our city manager, and then with some of our key staff members on their work. So what does that look like for you, and how long do you all take to absorb information?
So if I'm hearing what you're asking is, there's going to be a transition period, and what it's going to take to involve the transition period. So those would be a series of meetings that would require myself and our team to kind of meet with different departments or whatever, so they know who we are, right, and what we can provide. It would also entail with the district court. In particular, what we would do with the district court is probably meet with the current vendor that you have handling the district court matters, and whether or not they're going to continue. They're not going to leave you hanging, and most lawyers are pretty good about helping the transition. I would expect that from a professional. So we would work with them, determine exactly the number of cases and what's outstanding when they need to be taken care of. There are some circumstances perhaps that attorney may have to continue handling that matter if they've done some things. It depends on the nature of the matter, but we would look at that.
Any other questions?
Because this is a little bit more of an unusual circumstance. We have provided our 30-day notice to our former vendor, which means that our current city attorney will have to transition into taking over that role. And then
Okay, so there's going to be a little bit
it
different.
would be a possibility that at some point, probably pretty soon, there'd be another transition. Does that make this a longer transition than you had predicted, or not?
I don't know until I get into it, but if you're telling me that you're terminating the contract in 30 days, well, then we have that, we know what we got to do, right? So we would take care of that and get on it right away. Yeah.
Anything else, council? Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
You need it?
No.
Yeah, okay.
You're fine, you're fine.
You can be here all night. Take your time, John. Oh, sorry.
Well, all I got's a cat to go home and feed. Thanks for coming in tonight. Thanks for your submission. We've read everything. We're gonna do this a little more informally than the last time you were here. In a perfect world, we'd like to, try to get done in 30, 35 minutes, something like that. But if that doesn't happen, that's fine. We'd like to give you like 5 or 10 minutes to sort of do an introductory thing, whatever you would like to tell us. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to go down the line, and council members who have questions are going to ask all of their questions at one time. Just come down the line this way. And then there might be some follow-up questions based on your answers and the questions themselves. So,
And please draw the mics.
yeah,
Turn them on so they're green, and then please
And get 'em-
speak right into them.
thanks, Eric, because that's, you gotta have them right there in front of you like I have mics. Please proceed.
Sure, thank you. So good evening, everybody. John Clark, G. Marco Mullins and Horton. Been with the firm since 1995. Directors, and I chair our municipal group, which is 8 lawyers. However, a full-service firm, provide all services related to municipalities, including workers' comp, environmental, real estate, tax, tribunal work, all is part of the service. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here. It's been a great 3 years, and we appreciate the opportunity to come back and again, apply for the position that we certainly want to keep and are excited to keep. Couple different things I want to point out about our bid. Number one, when we submitted it, we did submit for labor, general, and prosecution. And the reason for that is not to take anybody's current business who's doing work for the city. That wasn't the intent. We didn't know who was going to apply, who wasn't going to apply. So we applied for all 3. Turns out prosecutor did not apply. So we are certainly pursuing prosecutions, and Ann will speak to that. In terms of labor, you have a great labor lawyer. I've known Gary for a long time. We work well together. I know Andy and Tony both work with her. So I think in terms of that service, I think you guys are in good hands. So I do want to turn it over to the rest of the team. And I do have a couple other minor things I do want to present. And then we can answer your questions if that works, Mr. Mayor. Right, Tony.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Great to see you since 11 o'clock last night. As you know, Tony Chubbs, who I've been practicing law.
I think it was 10:20.
That was
But-
probably more accurate.
You can correct me if you want.
So, been practicing law going on 16 years, all municipal, I started out at the Smart Transit Authority, which is similar to CATA, but for the city of Detroit, or for greater Detroit. After that, I went to the city of Flint. I started as the deputy chief legal officer. I became the director of human resources and labor relations, and then I became the city attorney and helped the city work through the water crisis. At the time, I moved to the city, and I am still a resident of the city of Flint. After that, I did come to GMH. Currently, in addition to the city of East Lansing, where I spend absolutely the majority of my time, I represent the city of Northville, the city of Kego Harbor, Grambling Township, and Redford Township in a limited general counsel capacity. When we talk about, you want me to get into the case?
No, let's do the introduction.
Okay, great. That's where I'd like to start.
Hi, everybody, nice to see you again. I'm Ann Gabbert, or Annie, depending on what you like to call me. I have been an attorney, I think it'll be 18 years this fall. I have practiced, I came to the firm October 2023, so I was doing the math about 1.5 years. I come from a background of prosecution, county prosecution. I was at Oakland County for about 15 years, and then I spent my beginning years at Wayne County. And I have a strong prosecution background, but in my 1.5 years with being with the firm, I've worked a lot with municipalities. I've done a lot of FOIA work. I've done a lot of work with building and building code and BBA meetings. And
I've dabbled in some tax cases with Mr. Hitchcock, who's also with our firm. So it's been a good opportunity for me to learn a bunch of different things. But I do have a vast career of litigating in my almost 18 years. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm not sure how close I
It's
need to
fine,
be.
yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Plotz. I have been with Gianmarco Mullins and Horton for about a year now as a law clerk, and I recently received a full-time offer contingent on me passing the bar in July. Over the past year, I've worked closely with the municipal group, and I look forward to continuing to do so and contributing to the firm in a greater capacity as an attorney in the fall.
So I was thinking about something way to kind of capsulize service that we. Fortunate enough to be retained back in 2022. As you may recall, Mayor Brook, Tony was the main thrust. He was doing main work. And as the relationship grew, cultivated, had discussions with the city manager, and we decided that the best way to do this is to have clear demarcation of services that really the three of us provide. Other lawyers that you've met provide services, but this really lays out who does what. And that's important. I mean, you can have 7 lawyers show up here. Who was doing what? And for your department heads, it's been, I think, a fantastic relationship. It's really worked out well. We've presented this memo to them, and in terms of who knows what, they're not calling me only refer to Tony or calling Tony only refer to Ann. We have our set roles. Certainly, we have internal discussions constantly because there's overlapping issues. But I think this really shows our commitment to the city, the fact that we have the horsepower to handle all of your issues on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, and you will continue to receive that great service. So I just wanted to point that out. I think that's very important as part of this relationship. And again, that will grow. Megan is coming on board. We are growing. Our group is growing, and we will continue to provide you guys with the best service possible.
Thank you. Dr. Altman.
Thank you. Please understand that I'm asking the same questions of you that I'm asking of everybody else, so bear that in mind. What's your understanding of the scope and volume of our needs for general counsel in particular? Do you have the capacity to meet them? And how do you know that?
Sure, absolutely. So this would be Exhibit 1 on that answer. We are very familiar with the needs, and we are very scalable as the needs have increased. And I believe it's not necessary that it's going to continue to increase. It can, change over time. We've met that obligation. We have every additional resource necessary if there were to required to be additional assistance. And I think it's our 3 years in doing it timely and successfully that we are aware and show that we can handle the obligations of general counsel.
What can we expect in terms of turnaround time for an ordinance or a legal opinion?
So what we do, I'm sorry. So we are very responsive on emails, very responsive, and really in the way that we function is when a request comes in, it's when do you need this, right? So the client establishes that mandate, and then we of course meet or succeed that mandate. Some projects require immediate turnaround, some projects require by the next meeting, et cetera. So the way we handle it best is to make sure that we know what the expectations are. And the best way to do that is to come out of the box and ask the question. Don't assume that we have a week or two to handle that. The expediency is developed and established by you all and the city manager, and we're here to meet that expectation by making sure that we understand what it is.
So your client has many representatives, right? There's the council members, the city manager, and then staff. what's your process for managing communications, for coordinating assignments to different projects, and for tracking projects to make sure they're all getting done?
And again, I'll start, maybe Tony can chime in. Again, this document, I think, really capsulizes that, because you don't have, first of all, we have dedicated persons doing dedicated functions. So you don't have overlap, or worse would be having no coverage at all. Oh, I thought you were going to handle that. No, I thought that was you. So we're all experienced, seasoned attorneys here. And so I fully expect, as the chair of our group, that if there's somebody assigned to a task, that they will complete it and get it done. And that's the expectation. And by having these tasks assigned, and the department heads know what they are, and the city manager does, that helps expedite the process.
Tracking process?
So again, I mean, it would be the communication with the person who assigns the task, understanding what the needs are, and making sure that it gets done in that timely fashion. Communication's king, Dr. Altman. It's king. It has to be there. We have to make sure that we're on top of those projects. If you want to add anything.
As it relates, yeah, and additionally, as it relates to litigation, I implemented the litigation tracker, which we update every time there's a substantial change to a case. We actually, with an exception, have a light litigation load right now, which is really a compliment to the administration. Frankly, that's what drives your litigation load. It's quite low, but I do update it and either update the council by way of email when we have developments in specific cases, or update the litigation tracker which can be an internal function that was just updated for purposes of setting the budget for next year. And also for any closed sessions requested by council to go over the overall, litigation posture of the city as it relates to all pending litigation. To that end, today, I actually have an update for you. I was in court this afternoon in front of Judge Morgan Cole, representing the city in the matter of Leisman v. East Lansing. You may recall that case. It was a FOIA case, which means it's not particularly monetary, but it's incredibly important for the city, because it was a FOIA case requesting internal documents and investigation documents regarding the former police chief. Under the FOIA, there's a specific exemption for law enforcement personnel records, but you do have to establish that the benefit in not disclosing, the public benefit in not disclosing the records is greater than the benefit of disclosure. We briefed the issue on our motion for C8 and C10 after discovery. Today I had oral arguments, and the judge did rule in our favor and dismiss that matter. I was very glad to obtain that ruling, because that's been of tremendous concern at the city and management, because of the chilling effect that it may have on people that want to file any internal complaints if they know the first person or one of the people that's going to get them very quickly is the media, and that their internal complaint becomes anything other than internal. So that was a great outcome, and I'm glad to bring that to you today.
Timely. What's your process for ensuring that your written work is of the highest possible quality?
We share internal briefs and opinions constantly. So pretty much anything of a substantial high nature is circulated and reviewed. I typically don't even bill for those. As the chair, I feel it's ultimately my responsibility. These lawyers, work in my group and for me. So if there's an opinion that goes out, a document goes out, that is reviewed internally. We all review it, make sure it's pointed, it's covered. Again, there is overlap in projects. There's things that are going on in terms of assignments and assigned tasks. And so we share those internally to make sure that we cover all the issues. We haven't missed issues, in that there's no contradictory issues in terms of other projects maybe Tony's working on versus what I'm working on. So that's the process we use, and it's been very effective.
What's your process for tracking legal and other developments outside the city that might be relevant to the city and communicating those to the city?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so one good way of doing that is I'm on the Government Law Council. So the State Bar of Michigan has the government law section. That is for all governmental attorneys. It is governed by the Government Law Council, which acts as its board of directors. I was elected to a 3-year term that I'm serving my 2nd year in right now. Prior to that, I was elected to 2 3-year terms of the board of directors of the Genesee County Bar Association. These are the leadership groups that try to make those changes and track those changes so that when they occur, we're aware of them, and that as they occur, we can help each other. So I think that that's huge. We additionally, as a firm, have memberships to the Institute for Continuing Legal Education, ICL, the Michigan Township Association, the MTA. I'm a member of the Michigan Association of Municipal Attorneys, which is called MAMA, and any other groups like that. You know, the MAMA board has a mail serve list that probably circulates 15 to 20 emails a day, and anytime cases are coming down, published, unpublished, anything like that, we know them immediately. And through that, obviously, as soon as we can see what it's about, I can see whether it has any impact on what we're doing in our city as we're doing it, and make sure we factor that into the opinions that we provide to you.
Also, Steve Hitchcock in our group, he has been assigned the task. His task is to review legislation. So he reviews bills that are in the works and monitors them right from introduction all the way through if they're signed into law. And so that's been a huge benefit to us. A lot of times the bills go nowhere, or they're changed or whatever it may be. But, you know, Tony's tracking it from the case law perspective and from the ground roots perspective. And Steve, with our assistance, is tracking it on the legislative side.
We 5 on council don't always agree on legal issues. 2 of us are attorneys, but all of us speak up about legal issues, and we all have equal authority. How do you navigate those disagreements?
Yeah, sure. So obviously I sit with you during most meetings. First of all, some of the opinions from the 3 non-attorneys are some of the greatest opinions I've ever heard, and the inverse can be true as well. You know, I mean, obviously when I'm giving you legal, but
Take that the way it was offered.
I think we're done here, aren't we?
So, you know, yeah, I really think I can't favor a position taken by any single council person, given their leadership role, experience, their background. I look at it, you know, fresh and give my interpretation. It's all that I've done is municipal law. I make sure that I research my opinions to believe that I can back them up, and that's where I'm going to land every time. But I obviously want to assist you in making your policy decisions by giving you what I believe is sound legal advice.
What's your view of an active client who engages closely with your work product and may have a lot of input?
That's welcomed. I would rather know upfront. I would rather know upfront that we are heading down the right path, as opposed to putting together an opinion, a brief, a document, only to send it over to say, this wasn't quite what I wanted. So I encourage input, quite frankly. I think we all do, because ultimately we work for you, and our goal is to make sure that we provide the best service. So that is a plus to me. I'd rather have that than have a client I never hear from, and once in a while pick up the phone. I'd rather have engagement, because then I know if there's issues, we adjust them, or if we're doing what they want, then I know that as well.
A lot of our council work happens during evenings and weekends because we have day jobs. Are you okay with periodic communications in the evening or on a Saturday or Sunday, whether by email, text, or phone?
We're 24/7 operation. Yeah, 24/7.
I want to pick an example that's sort of a little bit ripped from the headlines, but we had an appeals board meeting recently that took 2.5 hours to do about half an hour of work. And knows what I'm talking about. In part because it wasn't clear what the applicant was appealing, and the board members didn't know what the right motion was for what they wanted to do. What can you do to keep a meeting like that on track?
Sure.
So that's a great question, Dr. Altman. I'm actually in the process of working with the building department on creating some bylaws.
Okay.
And so those bylaws will hopefully set some good parameters as to, and I think one of the specific things, and I know you and I talked after the meeting, was to set some time limits on the appellant, how long they would talk, and then there would be discussion, and then if there's a rebuttal period. I think that was largely what the issue was, and then perhaps working with the board a little bit. I know there's a new chairperson, and having him be more comfortable in reeling people in. So yeah, I think it's communication with the boards that you're on, and having them be comfortable with you, and having them being able to ask questions in those types of circumstances, so that they didn't do anything wrong, but so that it can be maybe corralled better next time.
And in addition to that, we do, as a firm, offer a lot of ongoing education to boards, subgroups, and we would always be happy to do that. If it's a specific board that has a specific problem, or just generally when you have when we have new appointments, we have to remind everyone of their obligations under the OMA, under FOIA, and so we do that quite consistently.
What about preparing sample motions?
What do you mean, like ahead of time, or?
Yeah.
So that I would think, and I can have the gentleman speak on it, they know it more, but I think that would be should be a communication with the board as to, the board has to have an understanding perhaps of where they're going to go with it to be able to set the proper motion. But I think that, I know we do that in our practice, and it is a good practice to have. So that way we can guide the commission or the board as to what maybe motions they would be seeking to request.
So I was thinking about, reading the appeal, figuring out what the different what the landscape is,
Sure.
coming in with some options so that depending on where the board wants to go,
Sure.
you can put that on the table and we don't go round and round and round on whether it's
Sure.
got to be an affirmative or the negative and yada, yada, yada.
Yes, and that board is working on still the affirmative and the negative, and we have advised them, and they are getting better at that. But yes, no, that is a good idea.
And then I think the proposal indicated that John was going to be the lead, but it sounds like from this list, it looks like Tony's still going to be
Yes.
at the meetings. And
Yes.
so we're
Yes.
going to keep on the track that we've been on.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
And also on the proposal, I just want to indicate, we did raise very transparent, we did raise the fee from 135 to 165 an hour for the general work, Tony and I, and then for prosecutions, if we're fortunate enough, we propose $150 an hour. So slight raise from where we were 3 years ago, but I think it's very competitive, and I wanted to make sure that was clear. I know it was in the proposal, but I always like to put that on Main Street to know what we're charging.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Mr. Meadows.
Just a few questions. You mentioned you have 8 attorneys in the municipal group. I only wrote down 7. So is Megan going into the group?
Yes, she is.
Okay.
Yes.
That's it. And Carrie Miller you have listed as handling the prosecutions. Is Carrie currently transitioning into these prosecutions?
Actually, Annie will be handling the prosecutions. Yes.
Okay.
Carrie is also a seasoned prosecutor and will be providing backup. Carrie also came from the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I just want to ask you about, sort of the theory of the advice that you do provide us. My experience with our prior city attorneys has always been that basically the advice is the worst case scenario, that, they don't want us to get into hot water. So we get an opinion that pretty much displays this is the worst thing that can happen to you. We still have to make the decision off of that. Do you also provide an opinion as to what your best opinion is as to what the likely outcome is?
Yeah, I think we both can speak to that. So I think number one, it's understanding what the opinion is requested. Number two, I don't like telling clients no. right? That's not why we're here. Sometimes you have to. My philosophy is you give them options, and then each option has risk and reward associated with that. So you can go down route one, which is your most conservative. Route two is there's some risk associated. Option three is probably your riskiest, but there is some reward with that. And so that when you make an informed, educated decision, you know that I do have options. I didn't hear from my lawyer. I just can't do that. I don't think that's really our role. Sometimes that's the case, but I think providing options and the risk associated with each option is the way that I proceed. You have a different.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And that's what I try to do in my opinions. I don't, I want to make sure that my opinion is crystal clear if I think that there is a weakness in a specific matter, whether we're the plaintiffs or the defendants, but I don't want to try to say that I'm foreclosing on that as an option, because that is wholly policy. I always try to make sure I'm separating the issues of policy versus the legal determinations that I'm providing. So even if I say this one has a 25% likelihood of success, 50, maybe something 75, I'm never saying, so as a result, we should go the easy way. It's a policy decision. And I totally defer to you to that. I just want to make sure that in my opinions, I'm showing the likelihood of the outcomes on each of those options.
Did you calculate at all what you expect that your total income from this contract, should it be awarded to you, would be on an annual basis?
Did I calculate the total amount?
I mean, you have the hourlies in here, but I didn't see a single amount. I mean, we know what we've budgeted for
Right.
over the last few years, but now you would be taking on the prosecution as well. So what is your expectation in terms of the contract?
I think, what are we averaging a month?
It does change
Yeah.
a lot. That's why we're so scalable. And with some of the litigation matters, I think they're really a large piece of the current monthly bills. And that doesn't mean that they will be into the future, especially in a multi-year contract. The only thing as it relates to prosecutions is I think that with a competitive rate of $150 an hour and a in-depth review of the docket that Annie and I have reviewed, I think that we will save money for the city if handling that docket efficiently. I'm confident of that at that hourly rate.
And then one last question. Right now, your contract doesn't require a quarterly report of the litigation. Do you have any problem with providing a quarterly report relating to all the litigation and even a report with regard to where you've been in terms of numbers of cases and the outcome of cases within the prosecutorial function?
Yeah, we have a litigation tracker. How was that provided? Is that something?
Yeah, so that's it. So the litigation tracker, I think you were referencing as it relates to prosecution specifically. Yeah, so we could do something similar. I mean, first of all of our billing is broken down by 0.1 hours, and you see that in our current civil billing, and the same format will be used for the prosecution side. We can additionally turn that into any sort of report talking, that however you want to make it function as a dashboard, as a percentages of cases being filed, going to trial, as a percentage of cases going to trial and getting guilty verdicts. We can give you it in any format you want.
In any kind of cases, we could track, DUIs, assault battery.
Yeah.
Any way you wanted to have it tracked, we could certainly track that. That would not be a problem. It probably would be beneficial for everybody to have that.
Thank you.
Mr. Meadows, just as I do prosecution as well in Northville and Saline, and I bill it the same way as I bill for the regular municipal. So you'll see, without giving, too many details, just for sake of brevity, I do always say what it was I worked on and, who I talked to or that sort of thing. So you would see that in my billing.
Ms. Swanson.
To start with, the list doesn't mention to what I would translate as typical prosecution, as in the DUIs that you mentioned. So why is that? Okay, thank you. Alrighty. He answered the question.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's a fair question.
My next question is, hold on a second, I gotta get to my form. First of all, John, your last name is Clark. All these firms have these last names, and I'm just like, I thought you were with a different, I didn't know you guys were. And I'm not saying I knew today, but it's just hard. And so what I want to say as a person that does not have a law degree, I appreciate that I think during a closed session, you caught on to when I had kind of mentioned that I felt like I had been dropped into a conversation. And that's because there was a bunch of, in my opinion, legal communications going on that leaves out my ability to understand. And so after that, you had contacted me more than once to just kind of make sure I didn't have any questions, or that I was really just going to begin at a level that I needed to begin at with other council members. So I just want to say, appreciations
Of
for
course.
that,
Of course.
and for what you did. Those are the type of things that some council people deserve, especially when, again, you're not coming to the table with that legal background. And so my expectations have been, as a council person, that our city attorneys are going to look out for us and make sure we're not like being completely illegal in our thought processes, or help us along that way. Not that I'm expected to have a law degree, even though I was elected and appointed by the people. Thank you. And so my next question I'll ask, you all know this, but it's the same kind of question I've been reading. Our Independent Police Oversight Commission lacks, I know it was listed, lacks dedicated legal counsel, and has had guidelines marked for updating because changes were made during the collective bargaining process with police unions. Our Independent Police Oversight Commission, again, does not appear to have their own attorney. So how would you support them? And if it were best to provide independent counsel to them, would you take off your hats to respond, or would you suggest that they just have their own separate law firm that works in the best interest of the design of the LEPOC Commission, which we did not write in attorneys. We wrote in social workers, psychiatrists, Black and brown people, people impacted by the law on the other end. So how do you, and so that's my question.
Yeah, so I think the end of your question is exactly the point, in that the way that the ordinance was written, it is the same as our other boards and commissions, in that they don't provide for independent counsel for those boards and commissions. And so, other than state law provides that for the DDA, totally different issue. But in our ordinances, everyone is represented as a board or commission by the city attorney. If we wanted to look at changing the representation structures for those boards and committees, that would be at the board level, at the council level, as a policy decision to go in and change the necessary ordinances, I think.
I also want to say during budgeting, LEPOC had a large amount of money that was said, I don't know, they were utilizing or was used for them. And we're still waiting. Actually, I haven't officially seen it, if it's come through, the breakdown of that. It was like 50 grand to other commissions, 2 to 3 grand. And it is written into LEPOC's ordinances that, or whatever they're called, that you can have legal counsel, that they can seek that. And when we talked about these changes that are coming, and the thought process was this was a real win for collective bargaining for the police, and that oversight is going to mess up. They're lay people. So how do we support a commission that is an arm of the city of East Lansing? What is the best thing? Is it just that they need a separate law firm that will answer their questions, that will help them understand and take the dives they want to, but also pull them back, and that they feel like this is an ally to the work. They're helping us understand, they're helping us not commit something, instead of making changes and saying, oh, they might mess up, and not giving them the legal support that they deserve.
So, and maybe Ann, because I know you're working directly now with Gary on that. So, I mean, again, I mean, and actually in that process you're referring to, the labor attorney is the one really taking the laboring oar on modifications potentially, or making suggestions to the ordinance to make it compliant with the unfair labor practice decision. So we have a role in terms of assisting LEPOC in terms of those ordinance changes. Is that what you're?
Yeah, I mean, I know that there was the recent decision, and there's actually a letter that is pending that will be given to LEPOC. That is our attempt of Gary and I to explain it to you. And we will, it's a cart before the horse, but we will welcome any questions. And I do want, and I think I understand Ms. Watson in the sense of that you feel, because we work with the city, that perhaps we're not always representing or seeing the best interests of LEPOC. And I know this is an ongoing discussion, and I do want LEPOC as their, I wouldn't say their liaison, but their person that helps it. I do welcome their questions. I do welcome their concerns. Obviously, because I work with the city, I could see how that could be a concern or a challenge. But as far as specifically, we do have a communication that will be coming out soon. And I do want the council to know, and anyone that's watching, that we do welcome any questions with that. And so even if it comes off a certain way, which we hope it doesn't, we do want you to be informed, because we do appreciate that everyone on the commission is not lawyers. And I get that, because I didn't grow up around lawyers either. And until I went to law school, I was the first lawyer in my family. So I want everyone to feel comfortable in asking questions.
To that end, that does go back to the training that we can offer that is specific to the boards. We represent them all impartially, and we'd be happy to set that up.
How would you define racial disparities? And this is about prosecution. How would you define racial disparities?
So in terms of prosecution, I would describe racial disparities if we see either certain members of the community being charged maybe more than different members of the community, perhaps based on their color, well, for racial, based on their color, and then in addition to what the results of those cases are. So do we see, are people not given the same deal, whether you're white or black? And is that a disparity? I will say, in my experience, having worked at both Wayne County and Oakland County, those are two very different counties. But I have worked with, I worked in 36th District Court, which is Detroit. We work currently with Highland Park, Township, as well as Saline and Northville and other communities. But I do feel like I've always been told as a prosecutor that I was a fair prosecutor. And I do like to see the cases on their facts and on their merits. And I like to look at that before I look at anything else. And I like to treat everyone fairly. And I genuinely feel that in my gut.
And you could statistically back that up. Like, if we pulled information on you as a prosecutor, we would see what you're saying.
Yes.
Because as you know, part of the design of East Lansing Independent Police Oversight Commission is to address racial inequities. And so we're seeing that they exist in our police departments. Okay. And so then there's the role that the prosecutor has, and then there's the role of our judges. When I had my fit about the email regarding our former prosecutor, am I being recorded? Yeah. Okay. Regarding our former prosecutor, where you all were in the email and we were in the email. They were not. I was able to find information so I could understand contempt charges in our courts. Did you know that 50% of contempt charges in our East Lansing courts is of Black attorneys? So what do we do about that?
I didn't know, and I don't,
Have to answer.
and I know, and yeah, I hear what you're saying. I don't
Yeah,
really
there's
have.
nothing to say.
Well, I mean,
I'm talking about attorneys.
no, I understand, but the contempt decision is at the direction of the judge. I mean,
Exactly.
yeah, us as prosecutors or defense attorneys, I mean, that's really up to the court to make a decision as to whether they believe somebody violated their order. But that's unfortunate to hear that.
You're in a statistically difficult spot, and just my hope is if you're considered for prosecution, that you understand that those issues and the roles or the directions that you could play. I did not, when I was trying to just understand contempt charges for attorneys, I had no idea I was going to find out what I did, and it's problematic. This is the city of East Lansing. And that's a disparity. Because we don't do half of the attorneys Black that come through our East Lansing courts. Not at all. So thank you. And that's all my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you answered my main question, but because I was asking about hourly rates, but Ms. Gabbard, I just want to confirm something. So if you were to get the prosecution business, the billings that would get to us about prosecution would be per case, per time spent, per case.
It's per email, it's per phone call, it's per.
No, I'm sorry, I'm not making myself clear. My experience is when I have to bill people, I bill per case. And so we have, let's say hypothetically, 25 pending prosecution cases. And so when we get a bill from you, if you get this work, will the city manager get a bill that identifies each case and the time that was spent on each case?
So it wouldn't, I mean, we can work it that way, absolutely.
Okay.
What typically is what I do is we have the prosecution line billable, that's in the main municipal billing. And then it'll say, I will say in there, 0.3 phone call regarding X case, but we can figure out a way, I'm sure, to make it, if you want to see what it looks like for each case. But traditionally, the monthly billing, unless we do otherwise, it'll say which case I'm working on. It just won't be necessarily a condensed version, but we could make it that way. That could be a discussion that we have as to how you want it to look.
Okay, so that's feasible.
Sure, I think so.
I don't have any further questions.
Well, this is a bit of a follow-up from some earlier questions. One is, it kind of leads into kind of caseload, memo requests. You're obviously managing the work within the team on your side. This is a unique situation with 5 of us who hire the city attorney, who hire the city manager, and then you all work closely without a reporting structure. So I'm just curious, back to, regular reports, presenting them both for the city manager and to council. And I know Mark said quarterly earlier. I think in some cases we may want to see at least monthly. Especially it feels like we're at a period of time that there's many asks coming through, whether through the departments or by council. So I think it just helps us understand what you all are managing. So I just am confirming that or sharing that,
Sure.
If that makes sense or if that seems like a burden.
No, not at all.
Can I confirm, Pro Tem, you're speaking on more than just litigation, but the more administrative day-to-day?
I think so. I
Yeah.
think that's important because those turnarounds, impacts our commissions. It impacts processing, economic development. There's a lot of support that I think the staff, still seeks. And then I'm just going to pivot. Sorry.
I could just.
Yeah,
just
go
on
ahead,
that
Jed.
Point, Tony and I, on occasion, go to the weekly steering meeting. So we are a part of that monthly or weekly meeting. So he usually, and sometimes myself, go to those meetings, opportunity to have engagement with the city manager, and all the department heads are there. So there's ability for them to, if there's issues going on that they haven't thought about, or it may trigger something, we are physically in the building with them face to face. And yeah, that's a commitment that we enjoy. We like doing it, but it's a commitment, and we enjoy, and it's really worked well. It's really worked well.
We like commitment here in this.
Right.
And it just, in your case, you've been working with the city for 3 years and are now very steeped in our historical wisdom, and not just because Mr. Meadows presents that every council meeting, but
Oh, yeah, big time. Big time.
I'm curious from your perspective, when you reflect on the 3 years, I've been hearing how important it is for municipal attorneys / city attorneys to, a long relationship is important. But my question to you is, in the last 3 years, are there areas of our work as a city or what's on the books in terms of our ordinances that still are a challenge?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we know that we're reviewing the ordinances this year as part of Robert's review of the ordinances, which we do through the steering committee every week. And then at the charter level, we're doing it through the charter review committee, which has been doing an incredibly detailed review of the charter. And it's great because it's not so much that it's East Lansing that has outdated pieces of its charter. Most charters were adopted around the same time, and it's state law changes that the model charter incorporated things, a lot of them around election law that were subsequently preempted by state law. And so we are making all of those changes. I don't think that anything is unusual or presents a problem to the city at this point, other than I think something that's at the forefront of all of your minds is, I think it's section 10.1, and that's the sunset on the income tax. I know we really need to be looking at that. I know we're already talking about it, and that's the one thing that we need to look at going forward to ensure ongoing stability for the city.
And also and things have really subsided, but there was a time, probably a year and a half ago, the city had a lot of turnover in the department head level. And so that created somewhat of a chaotic situation. I think with Mr. Bellman's steady leadership, I think things have subsided, and people are still leaving, but they're leaving because they're retiring, things of that nature, which is going to happen in any municipality. And so I think we've been able to assist in that in terms of plugging holes and making sure that those that are elevated into department level positions and or are brought in have a resource to go to in the event that they have issues or questions.
We done?
One
Dr. Altman?
final
Sure.
We're an oversight board. We're also a legislative board. We're supposed to have some distance, right? And we're not necessarily attorneys. We're electeds. If one of us hypothetically happens to catch an error in work from your firm, because we like to read stuff and read it closely, what does that tell you?
Tells you that we didn't do our job.
What do you do in response?
Fix it.
The error or the process that led to the error?
Well, the process, because typically the error is the error. It's something that was in a document. So it would be both. So one would be, for an example, if there was an opinion that you caught, you said that you cited the wrong provision of the charter, there should be a corrected opinion that would go out, corrected opinion, boldly stating that, and then double down on our review to make sure again that we're getting things correct. We're not perfect, and we know that. And again, we've been doing this a long time. If there are issues or concerns about services, criticisms, I mean, we're willing to accept that, and we expect it. You guys are hired us. It's a big time job. We understand that, and we take it very seriously.
Okay, thanks a lot for your time. tonight.
Okay.
Yeah,
Appreciate
let me
it.
say one last thing though, which
Yeah.
is we're not perfect either. And you already know that.
We're just trying to, go from one day to the next, right? Thank you very much for everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Don't. I saw several last night.
Oh,
Oh. Sorry, Mayor. Maybe I'm charged.
documents.
I was just hoping that it doesn't have partners, so that is it out.
Okay.
So, before Pike got elected as
Okay.
prosecutor.
Okay.
I-
Yeah. Okay.
I know I look much younger than but
I mean, you do.
yeah.
I did. So I was like, kind of confused. Good to see you again.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was thanks for
Yeah.
being here.
See you there. Thank you. Right.
That's the only way you live in. I don't know what.
Hi, everybody.
I had a lot more there, but.
All right.
Thanks, sir.
Right, just ask Anne, who was prosecutor at Wayne County? Anyway. That one seemed to. Is that what it was? Yeah, the big guy. Yeah, yeah.
That's all.
How you doing? Carly Young. Nice to meet you. George. Nice to meet you. Matt, how do you do? Pleasure.
Do we have enough chairs?
Like it.
Carly Young. Hey, how you doing? Look
How are
at
you?
you. Look at that. Look
Hi,
at that.
Mastrella.
Nice to meet you.
Thomas Bendit. I was just telling some stories back. You've been doing all right? Always exciting, right, Robert?
I'm back.
Always exciting. Carly Young.
Oh, hi, best of all.
All right. Okay, thanks for waiting and thanks for coming. Thanks for submitting your bid. We really appreciate your interest in the city of East Lansing. This is going to be a relatively informal situation. What we'd like to do is have you give us 5 or 10 minutes of whatever you want to tell us. And then very simply, we're going to go down the row with questions. Each council member will have his or her own questions. They will ask all of their questions and then they'll come to the next council member. And then there might be some follow-up questions. So begin the beguine.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for having us here this evening and choosing us to come in for an interview, as well as inviting us to submit a proposal to the city here. It's our pleasure to be here and also appreciate the lateness of your sticking with it with a bunch of lawyers all night long. We're at the tail end of it. Who knows how many you've seen all along? I don't know, but probably got your fill. So appreciate that. We are a law firm of 26 attorneys, as you see from our proposal. We are all municipal attorneys. We're kind of unique in that respect as a law firm where we are 26 attorneys who have all devoted our career to representing cities and villages and townships and counties and authorities throughout the state of Michigan, both in the courtroom and in the council chambers. It's what we do. I mean, this is what we do full time every day, all day, every day. We are like a 26 attorney, city attorney office, township attorney, where we all do the same thing. We all lean on each other. Our doors are always open, very collegial in our offices, going back and forth. We get together and do things, and we're also, many of us are involved in our communities on the personal side in various ways. We promote that as a firm. We are also very mobile. Everybody in our firm, even before a number of years ago, that bad time when everybody learned how to work remote, we were already able to work remote. We had computers. It was something we already had in place because we are mobile. We go around the state and represent municipalities. The team here itself has been in many locations, especially our litigation attorneys find themselves in courts everywhere. So there is no home court advantage. There's no courts, really, not many courts that we haven't been in circuit courts across the state. You know, that gives us kind of a unique edge, we feel, and it works well because I think I speak for all of us. I've talked to all the attorneys in our firm, and one thing we always talk about is how we kind of have a calling to work for the public government, even though we're technically in the private sector. We consider ourselves part of the team in the cities we represent. We take it very seriously when we represent a community. We know what it means. We know what's on the line. We know what's happening. We know there's taxpayer money at risk or at play that needs to be put into good and proper use. We're not afraid to tell you when you need to hear that, you know, this is a great idea that you may have, but it, you know, that's something that you can't do, or you can't do it that way. And that's our approach many times, is to say, not just say no, but to say, here's how you can do it, or here's something else you can do that might get you to the same ends. We take a lot of pride in trying to find solutions instead of roadblocks for our clients, and in a manner that keeps you out of court. So I personally, I introduced myself, Steve Jopik and everything, I know that, but I've personally been doing this for 31 years. Started out as a municipal lawyer and have been sticking with it. And most of us have the same story through our careers. So what I'd like to do is provide my colleagues who are here with me an opportunity to give you a minute or so of their time. I know you said 5 to 10 minutes, so I'd like to keep it within that. And if you could just start, Carlito, and introduce yourself, and then we'll go down the line. And
If I could just ask you to turn on the mic and move it close to you.
Mine close enough?
Yeah, it could be a little closer.
Okay.
How's this? How's
Okay.
this? This
Yeah.
sounds better.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
I like the temperature in here, by the way. This is a good climate in here. It's nice. But my name is Carlito Young. I've been with the firm straight out of law school. This is year 25, and I'm really proud of that fact. I wanted to start the Attorney General's office. There was a hiring freeze going on at the time. I came across Carol Rosati. I came home that night and told my wife, that's where I want to be. And I've been working from this firm ever since. Really haven't thought about going anywhere else. Robert Bellman and I go way back. I will say that. I started out doing cases when working with one of the longtime partners, Laura Amspiegler, doing some litigation over there. That's where I met Robert years ago. It's nice to see you again. This is nice. But as he knows, we get in it. We get in it. We take pride in our work. No matter where we're at, we're ready to go. The first half of my career, I focused on the litigation. Over the past 10 years, I've been taking more of a hybrid role, doing more of the in-house counsel, general counsel work, but I still carry a heavy litigation practice. What that allows me to do is provide and work with the team, as Steve talks about, us getting together. What's going on in the courts? How do we apply that with our day-to-days with our clients and the everyday activities? Personally, I focus in the employment law sector, as well as the employment law and the police cases. And then I subspecialize as well in the FOIA and the Open Meetings Act, handling litigation and consulting. boy, it's a very active statute, as you all know. It's a very active statute. It's always developing, and there's usually some sort of backstory that's there. We work all angles of it and try to assist the community. So I've been doing, like Steve said, similar to him, 25 years at the firm, plan on being there for 25 more years doing this work for these types of clients. So we like it.
Good evening. My name's Thomas Bend. I've been with the firm for, I think, 5 or 6 years. Before that, I was doing municipal work at another firm. The unique thing, I work with our Lansing office, which is just located right over by the Lansing Mall. So we're very close here to East Lansing and very active, not only in the mid-Michigan area, but Western Michigan as well. We get through the various courts in this area, very familiar. We have a handful of attorneys in our Lansing office, and we take great pride in that. We love our Farmington Hills office, but we think we're the more fun office. So very excited to be here, and we bring a lot to the table. So thank you so much for your time.
Good evening. I'm Beth Sorella. I've also been a municipal attorney for my entire career right out of law school. I've worked 25 years now with Steve. We do similar types of things, every day. General counsel is my primary day-to-day activities. I have a lot of experience with contract review, public utilities, water, sewer, roads. I do a lot of the brownfield work for our clients, Downtown Development Authority, environmental work. So those are the primary areas where I like to focus. I also do a lot of our real property transactions for the firm and condominium law review. So those are my specialties. Those are the areas I like to focus on. And we're all here for you on any, type of question that you may have for one of us. If we don't have the answer, there's definitely going to be somebody else in the office that does.
Thank you. My name is Matt Wayne. I'm probably the newest addition to the firm. I've been here for just about 7 months. Before that, I worked at 2 other firms where I served as an assistant city or township attorney. I do a lot of prosecutions, and I prosecuted a number of courts, but in addition to that, I do have a fair amount of cases with Carlito, and I've been needless to say, very impressed with everything that I've seen and everything that my colleagues have said. I stand behind that, and I really can't emphasize it enough that if it has anything to do with municipal and governmental law, that's something that my colleagues have handled, do handle, will continue to handle, and that, quite frankly, it's something that we all do very well at. So thank you for your time.
Dr. Altman.
Thank you. I've been asking the same questions of all our interviewees, and so even if you've touched on some of the topics, I'm going to ask the questions the same way, so just please bear that in mind. What's your understanding of the scope and volume of our needs in the city of East Lansing, for general counsel in particular? Do you have the capacity to meet them, and how do you know that?
Okay, great. Well, cities such as East Lansing, that's real important question, of course. You have a community that's very diverse, both in terms of its population and in terms of the types of activities that go on in the city, the land uses, the zoning, building, code enforcement. You, I'm sure, have the whole gambit of what a city government encounters. And more. You have a student population that comes in and out and through the city, and it adds a whole unique set of needs and demands of the city attorney in working with the city administration and city council. Very unique. We definitely have the capacity, as I said, 26 municipal attorneys. We have a team at hand ready to do everything you need and experience to handle all aspects of that. In our proposal and in our bios, we identify the various types of things that we are able to do for communities. And it runs the whole gambit of what any city could possibly need. If you need utility rate litigation, we have that, which is something that's you might think is kind of remote. But it is something that's important for cities. all the way to things like if you ever have eminent domain, we can handle the condemnation matters. We do that regularly. If there's a situation, I know you haven't done annexation of any areas in a long time, but if that were to come up, we handle that actively for other communities. Charter amendments and modifications, something we routinely do. That's a routine thing for us. Some of the things that other attorneys might not run into very often, we handle every day. Carlito mentioned FOIA, Open Meetings Act. He wrote the book. I mean, not the statute, but he's written the book for that and provided videos, provided assistance for many communities and I do it on a daily basis. Nowadays, FOIA is almost an everyday thing in our office. I don't even want to say almost. It is an everyday thing we work with our clients on in the office. We can handle anything and everything that comes our way from the city. The only two areas that we usually recommend, one area we always recommend is bonding. You need specialized legal counsel for that. We do not handle that. You have to be certified in a certain manner, and there is bond counsel out there available. We work with them all the time working with bond counsel at other law firms. In my understanding, that's not in the scope of services that are under this RFP. Labor and employment is another area that oftentimes when you're, you run into conflicts because we work day in and day out. If we were to be brought on with, for example, the police, and they have, perhaps union issues that come up, and labor counsel, to be labor counsel on one hand, but in court prosecuting with them on the other hand, is hard to do. I'm not going to say it's a direct conflict, but it makes it hard. You need your witness to testify when they're in court for a prosecution, or if you're working on an agreement, even with any of the other unions and there's a union dispute, it could make it challenging. We usually recommend outside labor counsel. We can handle, as Carlito mentioned, and we have other attorneys who do employment. So if there are employee investigations or employment matters that need addressing, or your employment handbook, those are things we can handle. But again, sometimes it's better to use outside counsel for those matters. And I noticed that that is kind of separated up in some of your ordinance in terms of handling labor and employment. I think it was, section chapter 7 of the code talks about separate labor employment type counsel for the city. So that was an interesting thing that I thought was very good. I don't know if it's required or not, but if you need it, we're there for it. But we would recommend those two areas. Those are the only two areas that I think would be an area we would want to talk about gaining outside counsel assistance on.
What about just the time that you need to allocate to I don't want to say a major client, but certainly not a minor client, and you have the time to spend on another client?
Yes, absolutely. With the resources that we have, that's exactly what we're built for. It's exactly what we're built for. And if we find that there's gaps, we fill them. We fill them. Absolutely. There's no question about it. If for any reason there were issues with that, we would be communicating with the city about that and making sure it got addressed. But I don't anticipate any issues.
What can we expect in terms of turnaround time for an ordinance or a legal opinion?
Well, the famous line of attorneys is it depends, right? And it kind of does depend when it comes to legal opinions and ordinances. I just turned around an ordinance in less than an hour for another client 2 days ago because I knew the ordinance is inside and out. It wasn't a big change. I had it all set up as a template. It was a very easy process, and I got it done within an hour and sent over them with a short cover letter. So it can range from very quickly, and we try to turn things around as quickly as we can, to very complicated some ordinances. I saw you have a human rights ordinance. I worked on a human rights ordinance for another community many years ago. That took a lot of time because at the time they were fairly unique, and it took a lot of research and a lot of work to try and figure out how to do that. I thought you have a very good one in place in your code of ordinances, and that's an example of one that would take quite some time. And not only does it take time for us to prepare it, but we have to work with your city staff and your if you have any consultants perhaps on a zoning and planning, you may have outside planning consultants. on engineering standards. There might be engineers. So there's a lot of collaboration that goes on. It's not just us. The key thing that we like to do is ask you, not you necessarily, but city manager or whoever is assigning us that work in the day-to-day administration, when do you need this by? It's a question I ask all the time when I get, email after email coming in, and we, line it up and do our best to keep with timelines. And if for some reason in the rare situation where we can't make it, some things happen, even in your personal life we always communicate and say, hey, look, I need an extra day. We don't just leave administration hanging. We like to have a very good line of communication. Communication is everything with our city administrations that we work with, and where required with our city councils, of course. So those are the key ways we work with addressing that. And I know it's not a straight up answer how quick we'll get it, but I don't think there is a straight answer to that.
Yep, that's fair enough. And that was sort of built into the question. So
Great, thank you.
Your client would have many representatives, including council members, the city manager, and also staff, as you mentioned. What's your process for managing communications, for coordinating assignments to different projects, and for tracking projects to make sure they're all getting done?
Yes, as you've heard, we work as a team. We are very communicative inside our law firm as well, and the attorneys, that get assignments, a lot of it is working with the city manager and city staff in making arrangements for, okay, here's the workflow coming into our office. Who's this going to come through? If it's this type of thing, or is everything going to come through the designated city attorney and then it gets delegated out? Or do you want to do things directly with some of the attorneys that we know are assigned in certain areas to save the time of having it delegated out? I would look for an orientation type meeting, a get together type meeting with the city administration and figure out what works best for the city, and we can accommodate either way. And sometimes it's a hybrid of both. Where I'm the lead attorney, I usually like to get carbon copied on things so I know what's going on. So if one of you call me, for example, and say, hey, what's happening with that brownfield thing over there? Well, Beth's working on it. And Beth is great. She copies me on so many things. I get to keep track of things. And me with you. I mean, we do it back and forth to keep each other apprised of what's going on. A lot of law firm communications going around to make sure we're all up to speed and can help our clients.
What's your process for ensuring that your written work is of the highest possible quality?
A little obsessive.
Great.
A little obsessive. And embarrassed if I find a word that is from and is written form. I seem to have that problem on my keyboard. I obsess in rereading it. I think most of us do. Everybody's shaking their heads. We like the work product that goes out to be as perfect as it possibly can. We write briefs that are, appellate, all the way up to appellate briefs to the Supreme Court. Those can be 50 pages long and very detailed, and it's like writing a short story book or something. And we really put a lot of time into make sure high quality. The courts want to see high quality. It can carry the day in some cases, keeps the court engaged. And when we're writing opinions, for whatever it's worth, when I write an opinion to you, for example, I like to make it so that it is not, it has as little legalese as possible. And it reads clearly and understandably and keeps you engaged so that you read it to the end to get to the final conclusion. A lot of times putting the conclusion up front. But I look to you sometimes for input on how I can do better or how we can do better. We're always all ears for how we can do things better, but high quality is very important to us.
You circulate drafts amongst yourselves. So if you have a draft of a memo, do you show it to other people? Always, do you get a second set of eyes on things?
Almost always. If there's a short memo, of course, but if it's some detailed analysis, not only circulating it for editorial purposes, grammar and so forth, but also for substance, because we each come up with great ideas or other thoughts that should be included, for example, in a legal opinion that may not be in there from experiences. You can add that in from other person's experiences in our firm itself. We do circulate, yes.
What's your process for tracking legal and other developments outside the city that might be relevant to the city and communicating those developments to the city?
Well, I see in your ordinance, that's one of the duties of the city attorney. It says as much as possible or some language like that, and I think that's great. By the way, I've never seen an ordinance like that in my travels where it's so
Are you tapping the charter or the ordinance?
I'm tapping, I think it's the code. There's a section 7. I can't remember where I pulled this from, whether it was the code or the charter, but it's section 7 and it talks about the administrative officers and it goes through each of them. It's in the charter, even better. So yeah, listing the city attorney like that in your city charter is something special. It helped me a lot in preparing, and us as well. So yeah, I mean, it talks about that and I think that's great. It's important. There are so many changes in the law. It's almost impossible to keep up with them all, but we would certainly do our best to do that. We are members of several organizations, listservs, municipal lawyer listservs that are very active in keeping people apprised, attorneys apprised. We ascribe to those. We are very active in the public corporation, or it's the old name of it, the government law section of the State Bar of Michigan. I serve on the council. Actually, I serve on it with your current city attorney, Tony. We're on it together. I see him every first Saturday of the month. But we are active in MAMA, the Michigan Association of Municipal Attorneys, through the MMO. We have board members on that board as well. All these things are put on educational seminars, which we send large groups from our office to attend the winter seminars, the summer seminars, the seminars in between. There are a lot of resources out there to keep us up to speed with what's going on, in addition to what we get from the State Bar, daily updates on things going on with the state courts and federal courts, and also Michigan Lawyers Weekly. We ascribe to that, and it gets circulated around our office, and we all check a box when we've reviewed that to help all the attorneys keeping track of all the cases that are coming out. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add on what you might personally do in terms of keeping up and reporting, but
We regularly provide case summaries and legislative updates to some of our clients. We monitor that through the e-journal. So we overview that and then, do that report monthly to clients about that and just what's up to speed. And then communicating, again, between litigators and the general counsel, we talk about what's happening over here, how does it affect us over here, how is this being received in the courts. We have those regular conversations.
The 5 of us on the council don't always agree on legal issues. 2 of us are attorneys, but all of us speak up about legal issues, and we all have equal authority. How do you navigate those disagreements?
Well, I assume they might arise during closed sessions when there's a legal opinion provided and city council is talking about the legal ins and outs of that. I think that the best way to address it is to listen as carefully as possible and make sure everybody has an opportunity on council to communicate what they feel about the law or what their perception of the law is, and then have a discussion about it, take it all into consideration. And if there's a specific point that one member of council has regarding what the law says, to take that point and do my best to explain why it's right, so that all the council understands why that particular council member's point of view is correct on the law, or why it's a gray area, which we often find in the law, or why it's not on track. Maybe there's another case that says something that is contrary to that, and be able to point that out as best I can. And lastly, if sometimes you learn things when talking to your client, when talking to you, that you didn't know were concerns, sometimes it's necessary to take those back and issue a supplemental opinion to you to address those issues. Always welcome that opportunity. And the key is listening, though, to all of it, to listening and sometimes asking you questions to make sure we fully understand where you're coming from on those legal matters.
So closed sessions are one thing, open sessions are another thing. And sometimes we get into legal issues during open sessions, and of course, those are open to the public. Does that change your answer at all? That happens in an open session?
It does because of the attorney-client privilege. So if it enters into an area where the discussion would involve something that I provide you a legal opinion on that could impact liability in terms, and where you have multiple options, for example, and maybe some of them have more risk than other risks, to be able to communicate that in an open meeting basically gives a roadmap to somebody who might want to take advantage of the city and its property tax funding. And before you've been properly advised, and we have an opportunity to fully communicate about it to make sure you're making the right decision and not going down that path. It provides an opportunity for more frank communication in that written opinion, as opposed to an opinion given off the cuff in an open session.
You would holler at us and tell us to stop talking.
I'm sorry, sir.
So you would holler at us and tell us to stop talking?
Yes, yes.
I might, maybe not holler, but I would certainly raise my hand and hopefully be acknowledged.
You get a look. You get a look. You definitely get a look.
Okay. Well, the raising the hand part's critical, right?
Yep.
If I may add to this, and I have to listen to your what you're arguing about too. What is the difference? I think that's key. I think it's consistent with what Steve was saying. You really have to listen, right? And sometimes that can happen in that open session, but when we would want to give you our response or opinion, we'd put the hand up or say the legal opinion will be drafted and we can discuss that so we can get to the details of it. But listening is always key.
But if I can on that, a lot of the legal issues, sometimes when you're at a city council, involve procedure. I've watched some of your meetings. They seem to move very well procedurally, very well run meetings. So I doubt that it come up, but sometimes they do. And that is a situation where I have to raise my hand and say, you know, this procedure is a little bit off. You might want to think about doing this or amending this motion to say that. So those sorts of things can be addressed right at the meeting.
What's your view of an active client who engages closely with your work product and may have a lot of input?
Of it. I'd rather know everything that is of concern instead of hear about it through other sources that after it's too late, after everything has been said and done. It gets back to, again, communication and listening and knowing and understanding. So active is great. Questions are great. I think I speak for all of us. A client that is engaged helps us tremendously do our job well.
A lot of our council work happens during evenings and weekends because we have day jobs. Are you okay with periodic communications in the evening or on a Saturday or Sunday, whether by email, text, or phone?
Pretty good. Yep.
Okay.
We're used.
Our phones, yeah.
We're used to it.
Yep.
Yes,
Right.
we're here for you. We pride ourselves on that. Absolutely.
And it never stops, right? We have a bunch of appeals boards, right? Quasi judicial appeals boards, and we had one meeting recently that took 2.5 hours to do about half an hour's worth of work. In part because it wasn't clear what the applicant was appealing. And the board members didn't know what the right motion was to do what they wanted to do. They're subject matter experts, but they're not procedural experts and they're not experts on the law. What can you do to keep a meeting like that on track?
Well, if we're present, we can certainly assist drafting a motion if that's the issue. And I do that regularly. Many of us do who attend meetings. Yeah, I would, and maybe even ask for a recess for an opportunity to do that, to sit down and put that together. If it's a motion that's causing the problem, if it's unclear what's being applied for, it might just be, you know, a situation where the matter needs to be postponed so additional information can be pulled together. I don't know that that's the attorney necessarily bringing that up, but depending on the scenario, a lot of times if the city attorney is there, there can be communication with other staff or, you know, about possibly making that suggestion during the course of the meeting. A lot of it is, as the meeting is going, kind of getting the feel for what's going on.
What about before the meeting?
Before the meeting is where you want to, as best you can, mostly the administration, pulling that together. And, you know, our role in working with the administration is to try and help foresee issues like that. If, you know, I'm assuming the city attorney is involved with the pre-meeting preparation. Let's assume that, then that is something that can be addressed prior to the meeting. With some of our clients, they want us in there for pre-meeting agenda preparation, right there at the table, pulling things together. Some communities want recommended or suggested motions or alternative motions right there in the packet. That's extremely helpful. That provides the tools for whatever appeal board or body is making the decision to have those at their hands. Sample motions, we help with that all the time ahead of time. And making sure that material in the packet is there and heading off lack of information or direction on what the applicant is asking for as much as you can. Things happen at meetings, though. We all know that.
They do. Could you briefly tell me, I know some of this information was in your proposal, but could you briefly tell me 3 sort of comparable size cities that you represent currently for general counsel?
As general counsel, well, City of Farmington Hills is 83,000 population. The City of Novi, I think, is close to 80,000. 75? 65? Okay. The township of Waterford, believe it or not, it's a township, but it has, I think, a population of over 70,000. Wixom, I'm not sure of the population of Wixom, but it's a good sized city. We've attached our list of clients. I won't spend the time, it's getting late pulling that up, but I probably could come up with some more that are comparable size. Special counsel, very involved with a number of large cities on a special counsel basis. Ann Arbor is one that we provide. They have in-house city attorneys, but we work with them regularly.
Great. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Mr. Meadows.
I just have a few questions. But I want to just note one thing. I loved your explanation of how you make sure that a quality product comes out of the firm. And just for your information, that's exactly how we worked at the AG's office. It was a collaborative effort in order to make sure that Attorney General Kelly was not ashamed of anything that we put in. So I think that's a great way for any firm to work, and really glad to hear that you do. You say you have 26 attorneys who specialize in municipal law. I'm just wondering how many are located in the Lansing area?
Sure, we have 4 attorneys in our Lansing office. That's myself. Andy Bragey is the other partner in our office. We have 2 others that are associates, including Heather Sumner, who actually worked at the City of Lansing's legal office for quite some time before that. We have like I said, we sort of do most of the stuff on the west side of the state and kind of mid-Michigan, and our Farmington Hills does a lot of the stuff on the east side. But of course, you know, there's crossover as well, but wide mix. There's general advising. We represent a variety of authorities, and we do some general counseling stuff for a few counties as well on the west side. Myself, I do a lot of litigation focused, but we have a good mix of attorneys, all very qualified, and right around the corner and close by, so we can be here at a moment's notice.
Well, I noticed that office, that building is being sold. Are you required to move at all as a result of that?
I'm not sure on those details. We have a lease for a few more years, so hopefully they're not going to push us out.
Do you have any other college communities that you represent?
Yeah, well, you're right. Farmington Hills has Oakland Community College, Waterford used to have a community college in it. It recently closed down. And like I mentioned, we do a lot of work with the city of Ann Arbor that does the work we do with them relates to in many ways the student population and its impact on the city and things that are happening there.
They're often copying us on our ordinances.
Pardon me?
So
I'm sorry.
I said they're often copying us on our ordinances, so.
Okay. Didn't know that.
The, in terms of how you would provide services to us, I noticed that, you know, we do have the resumes or bios of, I think, 6 males and 5 females who would be assigned to work for the city of East Lansing. Is that the purpose of what you had provided in your proposal?
Yes, those, I mean, the persons listed there are the persons that we think primarily would be designated, but all the attorneys in the firm would be able to lend a hand as necessary. We use everybody as a resource in our office for different things that come up because many of us have had experiences that can benefit our clients. And so we use people in throughout the firm when things arise that they have a special area of knowledge that might be helpful. So it's not just limited. That's why some of the language in that proposal indicates that our whole firm, these are the primary ones we're going to be turning to for East Lansing for these areas. But others are available as well.
And in terms of just sort of the routine representation here, we meet 3 times a month, every Tuesday night. Who would be the person who would be providing legal services on the night of our council meetings?
Yeah, yes, it would be me on those Tuesday nights with Beth as the backup if there's ever a time that I cannot attend.
Generally speaking, we would have one of the city attorneys at the DDA meeting or the Brownfield meeting. That would be you. That would be you. And who would handle the prosecution services? That would be okay. Then my question to you is, we have an unusual circumstance at this point in time. We have provided our current vendor for prosecution services the termination that is required under his contract. So I don't know how many days are left, maybe 15 before he transitions out. Obviously, our current city attorney will take over those services in the interim. How long would it take you to transition into those services if we were to hire you guys?
Immediately.
Are there any things that need to be done within the transfer of cases that you can identify for us?
Nice thing about Matt, he's a recent hire, so he's transitioning over. He's basically starting, so it'd be a clean start to start on those process. So we wouldn't have that transition period. When he's saying immediately, he means immediately.
Got it. That's good news. I think Eric asked a similar question, but between one of our guidelines, our internal guidelines governing the council allows each of us to ask for a city attorney opinion if we think we need that, as long as we notify the other council members that we're doing that. Between the time something like that might be requested, and I realize there are other issues, which is it a brand new thing? Is it, what are the details that caused this opinion to be requested? Things like that. But generally speaking, how long before we would get an opinion like that requested by a city council member after the request is made?
I think, again, it relates to the significance of the opinion being requested. If it's a simple question, it could be as quick as a single day turnaround. More complicated it gets, the longer it takes. I would like to say between a day for very simple things If it just needs to be put in writing, something that we already know and just needs to be put in writing, turn that around as quickly as possible. If it is more complicated and requires us to do some research, which some do, some opinions we need to go to the administration and gather information and details. That's going to be dependent on, how long it takes to get that information. I think as an objective, again, always asking when are you looking for this and trying to work within that. But without that, trying to get something out as quickly as possible without unnecessary delays. And if there's a vacation or something to that effect, we have other resources in the firm that can continue to keep it on track and moving forward. I'd like to say that most legal opinions can be issued within a couple weeks as a target, unless they're needed sooner or unless they're very simple to handle.
Is it fair to say that as a specialty firm, particularly a specialty firm in municipal law, other than something that might come up through a change in a statute or a very unusual circumstance, you've pretty much dealt with any issue that we might find ourselves in? Is that a fair statement?
Every time I think that, I get proven wrong, because these days I never know what's coming. But generally speaking, we've run into something closely associated with it. So we're going to be able to head down a track get a head start, let's put it that way, on addressing the issue. We'll know the area of law, but there's always, or not always, but sometimes there's that unique twist or some unique thing happening that we might not be quite up to speed on yet. I'm thinking of some of the changes to election laws that came down, and we had to deal with those on the fly, and very unique issues coming out of that. Something we hadn't run into before. Why? Because they're brand new laws that came into place. But generally speaking, the answer is yes. We've seen pretty much everything that is encountered by cities.
Oh, yeah. In your proposal, you proposed a 5-year contract, and you proposed a 5-year contract. The proposal indicates that you're not going to charge us for mileage or phone calls or other minimal things, but at a 1/10 of an hour hourly charge. Would that be true for the entire 5 years? The proposal that sets out the hourly cost as well as the other exclusions that were stated.
Yes, that is for the full 5-year period.
There's somebody in the firm who handles media contacts of any kind?
Media contacts? Nobody specifically, although when there is a media contact, our response is to the client first to see what's going on. And if we know what's going on, to talk about what contact has been made with the city. And often there's a communications department or whatnot to make sure we're coordinating. Typically want to make, because we have an attorney-client situation when we're contacted by the media as well. That's something to also take into consideration. And we also make sure to talk to each other again when those happen.
We'd provide advice to our communications department if there was a legal issue involved in.
We do, yes, that is something we do, certainly.
We've provided statements before. We've coordinated with PR companies before. My partner, Holly Battersby, and I do that a lot for, fortunately, a lot of incidents involving police, law enforcement, when those type where you need a little quicker response. We work with the community directly, or if they don't have experience with that, we'll reach out to our network and use people.
You indicated that the firm encourages each of its members to participate in their local community. Can you just tell me a little about what each of you do to do that?
Sure.
Sure. I live in Fowlerville, so I'm a little bit east, but 20 minutes or so from here. I'm on the board for Livingston County Catholic Charities. I contribute a lot to my church, and provide a lot of services that way.
I run the Coleman A. Young Scholarship Foundation. I'm a member. We focus on giving kids opportunities that might not have them, getting them to college, and providing opportunities for higher education. So.
I spent a great deal of time coaching youth sports. My young sons are not young anymore, so I have gotten a little bit away from that, but I have continued my involvement with a nonprofit organization called Community Homes that provides housing for adults with disabilities, providing them an opportunity for independent living. We manage many, many houses in communities to enable those individuals to live in communities and gain employment where they're able to in those communities and provide all the services that they need. Also involved with a local service organization called the Exemplar Club that is primarily a funding group to provide funding for a wide variety of charities in communities in Oakland County.
I'm on Novi Rotary. I'm a member of the Rotarian for Novi Rotary, and I help work with them on their annual fundraising events, which the big one is the golf outing for Novi. And I actually, for my local community that I live in, which is Farmington, I'm the city attorney for Farmington. So I do have a lot of involvement in what's going on there. And I walk basically to the city council meetings and the planning commission meetings. So I'm very familiar and like to get involved in the community that I work for and that I live in.
I participate in volunteering through my children's schools and our church. And then I'm a member of different cultural organizations. And still I remain a member of some of the in cultural organizations for some of the communities in which I've served as an assistant city or township attorney.
Thank you for everything that you presented tonight, by the way. And that's all the questions I have.
Ms. Watson.
Could you outline your firm's approach to handling some of the 2025 executive orders and talk about your firm's commitment to upholding the law? And when I ask that question, I'm saying that there are illegal things happening with these executive orders, and I'm wondering where your firms stood or advised on as far as proceeding.
Well, I'll speak for myself first. I don't know if anybody else here has had any experience with that yet, but yes, recently get into attorney-client communications, of course, with other clients, but we have received inquiries regarding issues relating to grant funding and impacts on grant funding and other federal contracts that could be impacted for road projects and various other matters in communities, reviewing some of the executive orders and some of the orders being issued out of agencies as a result of them and how they impact on those aspects, those contracts and funding for clients. So we are familiar with them and advising our clients on them.
The current federal administration's actions are seen as undermining diversity, equity, and inclusion. And recognizing that our council has a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as the city of East Lansing. So how and in what ways has your firm been working to support diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I'll take this one, if I may. It's hard because we're in active litigation on certain matters right now. The president issued an edict to the EEOC when he took over. and the EOC has responded, and it has affected the cases that we're dealing with. One thing we're advising our clients right now, it is early on, there's significant changes, and you have to just be aware of the law. It's hard to rush into a decision right now because you don't know where it's going to end, because we're dealing with executive orders. They're going through the court system about the validity of those executive orders, and the process is not finished. But the bottom line is change is coming, but we're committed to the law. And we have to follow and monitor that and apprise people accordingly to those changes. So it comes from, this is what the new executive order is, but this is what the law is. And it's keeping people informed, and like we talked about earlier, communicating. But it's a change, and it's an abrupt change, and it's a change that could have significant consequences. But right now, it's taking it in and monitoring and advising our clients. I would be hesitant to provide very succinct or very clear advice at this point because it's too early. It's just a little bit too early, but it is being pushed, and we're advising our people accordingly.
I think another thing worth mentioning is that one of the attorneys in our office is on the State Bar of Michigan Council. She's currently in line to be president of the State Bar later this year to take the leadership role of the State Bar. And if council may be familiar with the fact that the State Bar of Michigan issued a statement on exactly that, the rule of law in Michigan, and she was part of that. So we have obviously communicated with her regarding that and support her position.
We've talked about and designated ourselves and identified as a sanctuary city. Is that, again, I'm looking, my interest is in progressive attorneys, people that can support my vision of what it means to uphold the values of this community and also my own values. And so is that, how does that hit when I talk about that during these times? Would it be something you would be able to just, kind of tell us, don't take a risk on, or would it be something that you would be able to support us in all of the rights of the people that live, work, and come through here?
So you told me you wanted to stay a sanctuary city. You want to be a sanctuary city. I would advise you directly that under this administration, you'll be under some scrutiny. So we're going to advise you to how to deal with that scrutiny that comes through. If something comes through from a court that says that can no longer happen, we'll advise you what the law is and listen to your direction after that. But again, it goes back to knowing the law, monitoring the law, and advising accordingly. But I would be very upfront with you. If you're going to take that stance, you can take that position, there could be pushback in this current administration, but we'd guide you along the way. And that's how we deal with that.
And something else I thought about when Councilmember Altman was asking questions is like, sometimes I might have questions about regulating the tobacco shops that are opening. I've done some research, they're on every corner. And it's just like, well, what are the avenues here? And so those would be maybe some of the types of emails that you might receive, and then some types that are maybe outside of the box. We're not regulating tobacco shops right now. But what my question is there a way? Is there an opportunity? And how does that sound when that might be presented to you in an email? And would you be able to support my understanding and the direction I'm trying to take? Or again, just tell me that this is a risk, these are the laws, you can't do it.
On this one, I have some personal experience working on regulation relating to tobacco shops and hookah lounges, smoking lounges, and so forth. So I can tell you that a lot of the research is done. I don't know exactly what the city is looking to do in that regard, but anything you're looking to do in that regard, certainly be in a position to hit the ground running with you or in city council. Of course, we take direction from the whole city council, the majority, telling us what you want in an ordinance or don't want in an ordinance, and that's what we would work with. And if some things that you are asking for in the ordinance as a city council, if some of those are over the line, of course, we are going to issue you an opinion or provide you advice indicating that, like I said at the very start, doing it that way is not going to work. Maybe there's another way we can do some other things to get to the same goal or achieve part of the goal. but we will definitely be upfront in telling you that going down that road is not a road that's defensible. And also if it's a gray area, making sure you know it's a gray area. We're not quite sure how the courts would decide. That's a key issue that is something that could happen in some of the areas of regulating in the tobacco area.
And the nice thing about several communities that we represent, we can reach out and see how others might be doing it, that particular issue, and get some input by that. Might not have the ruling, the same effect as law, but at least gives you an idea. We'd have that conversation and give you that input.
And on that particular issue, I have compiled what a number of other communities have done in that. And
that doesn't surprise me.
In smoking lounge area anyway. And as far as pure tobacco shops, that's a little different and might require some more. But there is already a compilation of some other communities, what they've done.
I'm a progressive thinker. Our council is nonpartisan, but as I watch who's basically being complicit during this time with the new administration, who's not, and there is a great role that our attorneys are playing with challenging some of the things happening, as well as our judges that are making the right decisions. And so, especially during these times, like that's where my questions are coming from. And sometimes I'll refer back to segregation. There were attorneys that talked about risk level and probably just told people segregation was okay. This is the law. And so because especially of these times right now, being able to see the possibility of support and not conservative mindsets from the law firms is something that I deeply value. We need that right now. Nope. Just want to see if anyone has anything to say, though. That's not.
I'll add, let me jump in here. I have a client came to me very clearly. I want to continue and I want to fight for DEI. I said, I will guide you through that. That's what you want. We'll do that. But be honest with you, it's going to be a lot of pushback, right? I'm going to tell you, it's going to be a hard fight based upon where this administration is taking our picture. But we'll fight and we'll always advise you accordingly. Can't guarantee the result. And I'll be very frank with you, if we get the wrong judge determining an issue, but we'll guide you that if that's what you want to do.
If I could just add.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add in from the litigation side. To me, one of the most unique experiences that our office had in Lansing was we were litigating a lot of these COVID orders that came out originally. And I remember right after the shutdown, being in my bedroom, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm appearing in court in my bedroom. Now it's like, just a normal thing, I guess. But we were right on the edge in those initial days and weeks. We're not afraid to be aggressive. We're not afraid to push it when we need to. Always leaning towards the client's interests and what the client wants to do.
I agree with your assessment. The courts and attorneys are going to be very important and instrumental in what happens in the next 4 years. Yeah.
I don't want to pick on the new guy, and so it really isn't directed to you, but, so I have a question on your prosecutorial billing. So when you're performing a prosecutorial function for a municipal client, do you bill per case? I assume when you do bills to the city, other than prosecutorial, you have a case identification, and the city manager would get a bill from you that would give the number of hours and what you did, the tenths of hour, et cetera, et cetera. So my question is, in terms of the prosecution function, do you bill the same way?
We do not currently bill on a per case basis for prosecutions.
So how do you bill for prosecution?
We bill on an hourly basis, if we're talking about district court prosecutions, usually have a docket that you go into court and handle a docket with dozens or maybe more than dozens of cases on it. If it's a large docket, it would be billed on the amount of hours in court that day. not on each case.
And do you
But-
identify in that bill that the city manager gets the specific functions that were done on that day?
If that, we certainly would if that's required, and something the city would like us to do. I'm going to defer to Beth because Beth has a history of doing prosecutions for a number of communities. I did prosecutions for the first 6 years of my career, and that was 25 years ago. So
Okay, so
Beth is
the
more
answer to the
recent on the buildings. You might be able to best.
I had court this morning in Bloomfield Township, 40th District Court. And so I had a morning docket with 2 judges. I had pre-trials and formal hearings in both dockets. So what I did was I got a stack of files. Last night I reviewed the stack of files and billed, a 0.8 for however long it took me to review everything that was going to happen in court the next day. Got to court, I was there between both judges for a total of 4 hours, looked at the 2 communities I was representing, and I billed for appear in court, for pre-trials, formal hearings, for 3 hours for one client and 1 hour for the other client based on the amount of files I had for one client and the amount for the other client. I didn't get down into any specifics on, what each particular, operating while intoxicated case was, or so that wasn't called out in the billing specifically. It was just the fact that I was in court for formal hearings and pre-trials.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions. Do you have anything?
Recognizing we've talked about the breadth of work that the city needs, how would you onboard us as a client?
I think the very first step would be to meet with the city administration, to work with the city manager first and foremost, and then work around from there, perhaps gaining introductions to various department heads and departments, basically getting an orientation of the city leadership and city administration, and then try to coordinate a transition of whatever files may exist or projects pending that may exist, and also talk with this city manager and perhaps department heads on philosophies and expectations, and things of that nature. Most likely want to make sure we cover whatever the city manager also has on an agenda for terms of onboarding and making sure everything goes through. And does anybody else have any other suggestions or thoughts they might have? This would be something we would probably collaborate on before jumping into it. And, then you have the police department and prosecutions as an additional, so it'd probably be a multi-headed type.
Yeah, I was going to, if I could, I was going to say, certainly as for prosecutions, a visit to the court, and then right over to the police department to introduce myself and make sure everyone has contact information, get to know the officers in charge, shifts, who's doing what, let everyone know, again, my contact information, and also discuss such issues with the city manager. Again, get a take on philosophies, priorities. This is a good sized community, and like I said, with the university, there's a lot of stuff going on here, a lot of moving parts, and that's fine. That's great. Just need to, get it all organized and hit the ground running.
I try to get a hold of your FOIA policy, talk to the clerk, city manager, work about your FOIA response strategy, coordinate with the fire department as well as the police, and talk about that, how they handle FOIAs. Get a feel of your volume and your response time. You got to do that. What type of relationships you have with individuals here, in FOIA responses between the criminal defense attorneys. Try to get a hold of that, because try to see where it's at and where we can work with that, and, make it more efficient or just keep it the way it is. But that would be something I would do. Then as to the police, probably try to have a sit down with the chief about the community. How do you balance this, college atmosphere, at one point, and then the individuals that live here year round, balancing that. What are the busy times, and what are the issues that are in the community that are important or that are, at issue, and have that discussion right away. 'Cause I think it's very important to get a feel of that. So that would be Matt and myself, and as well as My other partner listed in there, Holly Battersby, would come in and talk about that and just get a feel of that. That's where I could see with this type of community.
Anything further? Any other questions?
Just one follow-up on that question in terms of, so it sounds like you would sort of fan out into the administration and each get a feel of particular departments and sort of do that in parallel. That's sort of the impression that I was getting.
Yeah, very, very true. But if I were going to be lead attorney, or whoever is going to be the lead attorney, attend to each of those.
Okay.
Yes.
And then what about the transition from our current general counsel? So they've got some projects, right, that might be ongoing. How would you coordinate with them to make sure that those projects get done appropriately? Would you ask to take them over? Would you sort of split them into some that they might continue? How would you envision that working?
Well, we'd be fine with doing it. I've seen it done both ways, where the prior council continues with the projects they have because the community prefers them to continue because the ramp up costs money for us to get caught up to speed, and that's fine with us. To the extent it's to be turned over to us, we would be in communications with the other firm to gain the file information that is necessary, or obtaining it from the city.
Thank you.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Just along that line, we have created a charter committee, and that charter committee is revising our charter. And that project will likely be done at the end of June. Is that when the report is due? So this transition could take place prior to that time. That would include, obviously, the preparation of a number of ballot proposals to change the charter. Would you see yourselves as reviewing that language and approving it, or would you keep it with the former city attorney?
Yeah, again, I think it's going to need to be a judgment call based on whether the city, we're happy to do that. Let's put it that way. I just had a ballot proposal for another community reviewed by George Elworth and his team in the Attorney General's office. I work with that office every year pretty much on charter amendments, and work with charter review committees and so forth. So we can easily transition into that, but if it makes more sense for the current firm to continue with that, that is something we are certainly willing to work with. If that's the desire of the city, we can go either way on that as well. But if it's a long-term project, it might be a point where we get inserted in what is perhaps what's going forward at this point continues, and then future things, if it's that extensive of a charter review committee where every year, because usually I don't think you put everything on. A lot of times if you're looking to do a lot, you're doing it over a series of years. And so there might be a point to merge in.
I'll just say that's another trend.
Yes.
Simply because George has announced his retirement.
I know. Yes.
That's like 50 years of change.
A big loss. Well, but he has put together
George.
a great team there. Yeah. I've worked with some of the other assistant AGs there yeah.
Okay, council, are we ready to conclude here? Thank you very, very much for coming.
Thank you.
Have a safe trip back.
Thank you.
Because of the press of business in East Lansing, it will be a few weeks before we make any decisions.
Okay.
We apologize for that, but thank you for coming, and have safe travels back home. And I hope you can get back to, was it Fowlerville? Do you know how to get there from here?
I do.
Okay.
know how to-
I just,
Somebody might be staying in Fowler.
yeah, I just,
Yes.
I just wanted to check and make sure.
Yes.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the late night here too.
We need to.
Okay. Let's go ahead and do a motion, please.
To adjourn.
Second? I'll second it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thanks, council.